Good evening, everyone. I'll call to order the April 21st, 2025 Ware Board of Selectmen meeting to order at 6:30 PM. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Anyone for public comment?
Chris Bolton, 162 Russell Drive, Ware, New Hampshire. The agenda has discussion for the upcoming auctions. Will the public be able to speak on that when you bring it to table?
The only thing we're doing tonight is actually just understanding from the auction companies what the process is. We won't be talking about any specific properties.
No,
Does that
nothing to
answer
do
your
with the
question?
properties, but with
Okay.
the auction companies. Will the public be able to speak on that?
We hadn't advertised it that way, but if you have a specific question, I think we would be able to accommodate that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay. I think that brings us to Director Fisk. Maybe we can do it in and out today, huh?
Let's hope so.
Yeah. You have the reclaiming and paving and chip seal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we will start with chip sealing. That was the second one I just handed you guys. As is every year, in recent history, All States is the only company that's bid on chip sealing. So they're bid at $340 a square yard, and then $8,500 a day for crack sealing. I'm gonna go ahead and recommend we go with them.
What roads do you plan on doing, Jay?
Deer Haven, Jamie, Guys, Colby,
Yep.
keep it all in that area.
Yep.
If we got a little bit extra, I might squeeze in a couple more over that way that are in good enough shape for it. But mostly right off the south end of River Road there.
How does this price compare to the last couple of years?
I think they were 310 or 312 last year. The crack sealing was $6,500 a day last year.
So how does that, I mean, because especially like the crack seals, a bit of a jump. So how does that impact how much you thought you were going to be able to get done?
So it depends on how many days we need crack sealing. Their estimate was 3 days. Last year, we had 0 days of crack sealing. Yep. Just depends on the road, the condition. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't affect that much.
Okay.
And this price is good for the duration of your work season?
Yeah. I have the bid if you guys want to look at it. It's not gonna tell you much different than what's on that piece of paper.
You've read through it, there's nothing we need to worry about? They definitely have their insurance.
Oh, yeah, yep,
That's
they don't
good.
mess around.
That's good. And you've used them for how many years? Anybody down here?
I've used them for all three that I've been
You've been
in
satisfied?
control of road work, and I think, when Selectman Knapp was the road agent, he used them all the time.
No
This
issues,
is 2016, I think.
2016?
no issues performance-wise?
No.
No, they're real good,
They won't do it if they don't think we won't perform.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, they take care of everything too. It's
Sweeping up the excess.
sweeping, traffic control, the whole nine. That price is to get it done.
Time it. I've read a lot of them.
It's just conventional chip seal too.
You gonna be able to put a notice up on the town website when they're doing it, so that the guys with motorcycles don't call up complaining?
Yeah, last year I put something out on the Facebook page. Definitely put something out on the town website.
When you do that, because the 2 years I've been here for this process, we get at least one person saying, what do you do to my road?
Every year.
So maybe include a little thing about like, it's gonna look like this for a short amount of time.
Yeah, I put a YouTube video up about the whole process last year in hopes that people would watch it and try to understand, but I can,
Just a sentence about,
Yeah.
the road may temporarily have some, I don't know, rock, or whatever you wanna call it.
yep,
We'll hear it anyway.
probably every year since 2016, there's
Tell
been,
people it's gonna snow, they won't put their snow tires on, so.
Yeah.
you know, I move that we award the 2025 chip seal bid to Allstate Construction for $3.40 per square yard and $8,500 a day if there's any crack seal that needs done.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Selectman Knapp, seconded by Selectman Fillmore. Do we need to specify an account? Does it come out of
road maintenance
road
reconstruction.
maintenance? Any further discussion?
Director get to sign that?
I think that's what we've been doing
Okay.
for the last, 8 years or so? Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor say yes or yea? Yes?
Yes?
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion passes 500. Okay, reclaiming and paving.
All right, so you got, 4 bidders in front of you, or 3 or 4. R&D is cheaper on asphalt per ton, and I did the math out on Busby's bid, and they are cheaper on the reclaim. That being said, they're only about $12,000 cheaper on reclaim, and R&D is 26,000 cheaper on asphalt. So I'm gonna go ahead and recommend that we go with R&D. We have a future, past work history with them. I see no reason in the future that they would do anything, to compromise that.
And how long have you been using them approximately?
I'd say since 2016 at least.
I got a couple questions.
Mhm.
How come looking at these bids, you'd almost think some of them weren't even bidding the same jobs. I mean, some of them say include stone, some don't include stone.
Yeah, so,
Traffic control, no traffic control, I mean, were the specs written tight enough so they're all bidding on the same thing?
yep, it was all on the same thing. I guess it's just different perception on how they read, what they wanted to bid on. It was reclaim, fine grade, stone, winter binder, 1-inch top coat, any handwork, and a price for traffic control. Some people put in a price for traffic control per hour per person. R&D put in a price for traffic control per day.
How did you bid it? Traffic, how'd you bid the traffic
I
control?
just include a price for traffic control.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because when I bid it out, I bid traffic control per day, and I still got all these types of numbers.
Yeah. At this point, we have a full crew. I sent out 4 guys a couple weeks ago for flagging class to re-up their certs.
Well, it's just an optional anyway.
It's an optional thing, yeah, it's not,
You might do it anyhow.
yeah, the last couple years, we just haven't had the help to
Right.
do anything. Now, this year, at this point, we have full staff. So I don't anticipate us needing to spend that money, but
Right.
it's nice to get a number on that and compare what we pay our employees and benefits and time and this, that, compared to what we're gonna get charged. And obviously, if we're cheaper option, we're gonna do it ourselves, and if they're cheaper, we can have our guys out doing regular maintenance while the paving crew's doing that. But
Yep.
same thing with the stone, it's an option. Their price and hauling versus what it costs us to buy it and haul.
Okay.
We do have the help now to go ahead and do all that, so.
What else did you have? You had said a couple.
yeah, I mean, I guess, it's like advanced spelled out, prices per roads type thing, and it just, it almost looks like they were, what they had to bid on wasn't clear. The way they wrote it up, that's how it looks, so, that's,
Everybody called me and asked questions beside advanced. And got clarification on anything they had questions on. All my information's on the bid, on the RFP when it goes out.
I can say with past history, they have often bid different roads, different prices, so I wonder if they take the mileage from the pit or from the plant or something.
They could, yeah,
Because they often bid
yeah.
different per road. So-
Their rep that was there at the bid opening, I asked him a couple questions and there wasn't very much help there, but
They're not the only ones I've worked with, but they often do that.
yeah.
Can there be any public comment right now?
We usually don't, but what do you have?
In regards to this, I have these contractors all call me to price out materials, and none of them priced out the same quantities. So they read whatever they read, and they took for granted it was gonna take this many tons / cubic yards to do the job. But there was a huge difference between them, which will bring up if I, as a contractor, bid a road in this town and I get it, I am under full-time inspections from whoever the town's engineer is at the time, at my expense, paid through the town. I would ask that we have full-time inspections for all of these roads that we are putting out to bid. The paving, the roads, and I'm not really sure how to word this, but I don't think many towns do that. And we put it out to bid, and Benji, you know, and you know. It goes out to bid, and a contractor bidding that pretty much knows he's gonna be on his own while he's there. We've paved, whatever, in the past. I would ask the board to please look at some sort of inspection process. There are specs that have to be met to build these roads. Who is in charge of making sure that's done? In the norm in this industry, there is an inspector, and it is signed off by the contractor and the inspector. What was done that day, from point A, from structure to structure? I don't believe we have any of that for our town roads. Now, our private roads, we have all of it. Would that be, I'm gonna ask you, gentlemen, would that be correct? If a developer comes in, he's inspected every day.
Yep.
But our own town is not inspected at all.
Well, I don't know if that's true or not, so hang on just a second. Let's,
Yep.
yeah. As far as the disparaging between the different contractors, we don't know what they may have on site or at other job sites that they're consolidating and that sort of thing. So I'm not sure that that is something I'm personally concerned about at this point in time. But I do think that if Director Fisk wants to talk about the inspections, that would probably be good.
Yeah, I mean, it's my job to keep an eye on the pavers or whoever is out doing anything for us. Make sure that things are going right, temperature of the hot tops, warm enough as it's coming out of the truck into the paver, you know, it's,
Right. And you have specifications in which you're
there's
performing the
DOT
job.
specs that we follow to make sure things are rebuilt right, make sure the roads are built the way that they're supposed to. Can't be out there every single minute with them, but obviously there is twice a day that I like to go around and at least check on the crew and see what's going on more if I can make it.
Okay, good. Do you have anything to add?
No, I understand the concern, and you use the comparison, I suppose, of, you brought up Deer Haven's being chip coated this year, so it must still be in good shape. The last time it was rebuilt, it wasn't inspected. The first time it was in, when we did rebuild it, was horrendous, and it was inspected when that was put in.
Mm-hmm.
And Pine Hill, and some of them weren't. I know Mr. Bolton did put some in that were under inspection that are in very good shape still to this day, but, I don't think it's always necessary if you have someone that cares about what they're doing and gonna spend the money on it, I guess. So.
Yeah.
I do see the disparity in the bids. I haven't reclaimed this much stone into roads, so I guess that's one thing I don't have a lot of, bid, history on, but to have a difference in opinion of how to bid is not unusual, I guess, so. Unless there's a huge dollar amount or a reason that somebody has that wouldn't go with, Jason's recommendation, I guess
Did you total up what all these bids come to for what they need done? I mean, what was Pike's total, what was Busby's total? What-
Second to last page on that one. All the square yards and tonnage is all approximate. You know, it's up to the bidders to go out there and make sure that whatever links they're bidding on are accurate enough for them. I know R&D is the one of two of the only ones this year that actually went out and measured roads, made sure that all the measurements were correct, so. Right in the RFP, it says the town will take care of sweeping operations for overlays, and Busby added in a price for sweeping, so it all depends on who's reading the bid and how they understand it, I guess. It's not
Who's the
a,
other that went out and measured?
Pike.
Did I miss Advance?
No, it's down this way.
James had it.
Sitting on them.
These aren't added up.
You count on about $30,000 extra for the stone on that bid. Cause they just gave a per ton price.
So R&D's doesn't include stone?
It does. They gave a price per ton.
At $26.50?
Yep.
Sorry. Thought you'd seen them.
Yeah, I did.
Must be.
I saw things.
So what did it up R&D's overall price if you add the stone in, do you know?
It's about $30,000 extra. Still cheaper total cost than everybody else.
It's about 411.
Yep.
Grab that one just so we don't lose it and put it back to him. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other questions?
No.
No? Okay. Accept a motion to award the reclaiming and paving to R&D for the 2025 season work at a price per the price sheet that you've handed out. And this would come out of the road maintenance account.
Second.
Could we say not to exceed 411,342?
I think that's hard to do when you don't have a handwork tonnage price, right?
Jason, didn't those bids also have a note on the bottom about tariffs with liquid asphalt?
Yeah, 627.50 for the AC.
So
pole.
you've got maybe a fluctuation.
Yeah.
They reserve the right, that's why sticking at 411 is gonna maybe get less done.
We've always, as far as I can remember, it's always just been approved there, price per ton, price per square yard for reclaim, price per ton on handwork.
I just wanted you to know that in the fine print, there was, a couple of them put a note in there about tariffs.
Well, there's always yeah, I'm sure it's gonna go up, there's always an AC escalation clause, every single one of them have it in their contract, so if it goes up, you pay it. Will be the note, it's not in their contract, but the only company that I've ever seen that would give a check back if it goes down was R&D. We got, my last year here, we got 30 grand back, cause liquid AC went down from the time of bid to the time of laydown. Doesn't mean they're gonna this year, but, they all have that AC escalation if liquid asphalt goes up. But in handwork, I'm assuming you didn't put a tonnage to it, because you don't know that, it's impossible, that's when you tie in your driveways and stuff, so you want a price per ton, just so they can't come in and tell you it's don't have a price to come in and tell you it's $500 a ton at the end of the day.
Right.
But you're never gonna be able to figure that out till you're done raising your road and doing the work, so it's hard to stick a dollar amount, I guess, to the entire season's project. And you might come up there and might have an emergency culvert repair that you want them
We had an emergency last year with Birchwood.
to, you
We
want to
ended up
patch
doing
or
that whole
something.
road, so.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly, culvert. Last year, we were doing one on Chuck Street.
Forgot about a dirt road intersection you want to pave or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I made that motion and was seconded by Selectman Knapp, and Bruce asked if we could put a not to exceed, and I believe that would be a little bit too binding on the users. Is that something you feel strongly about?
No, what I do feel strongly about though is that it doesn't appear that the spec was written tight enough so that these guys could all bid the same thing, which does bother me. You buy an apples from this guy or oranges from the other guy. And it's kind of late in the game right now to change it, but I think moving forward, we need to tighten up our bidding specs so that everything's spelled out. And we don't get guys bidding 200,000 yards of gravel and somebody else bidding 50,000 yards of gravel.
The square yards and the tonnage, it's all the same math calculation for the same road, so as far as them bidding, it's kinda not on our end, I wouldn't imagine. Years past, we've just bid out reclaiming, winter binder and top coat. And we haven't bid specific road projects as far as I can remember. I've gotten a little bit more specific the last 3 years and kinda said, these are the roads that we wanna get done. Here's the measurements, approximate. What can we do? So I don't know if that's too specific, if we wanna just go back to price per ton, and then when we get a contract, we let them know which ones we wanna do.
I mean, that may be better, because at least then everybody's bidding the same.
Well, when you send it out, did you send the roads that you're doing in the width?
Yep.
Yeah, that's how we always did it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
May I ask a question?
At this point, no, we're almost ready to
All right.
make the
So
motion.
there's always bid out, the width of the road, the length of the road in feet, and the number of inches in thickness. That brings your tonnage. And we did our math. It's up to the salesman to come make sure that we know how to do math.
Yeah, that's,
And you specify what you want, if you want 1/2 inch top, 3/8 top, if you want 3/4 binder. You figure, same as reclaiming, you figure out your square yardage and, so.
All right, I'll go ahead and call the question. All in favor, say yes or yay? Yes?
Yes.
Anyone
Yes.
opposed? Anyone abstain? I believe I heard 5 yeses. Motion passes 500. Want to make sure you have all those, I think you
yeah, I
do.
think he does, I think he does.
Before you walk out of here, I'd hate for us to have confiscated one. Real quick while you're here, any luck with the transfer station? Anybody bidding on that job?
Got a few people who are interested.
Good.
Trying to find some people who are a little bit more qualified. Unfortunately, I don't know how much we're gonna get at the rate of pay, but, I got a couple more interviews this week.
Good,
Hopefully those are promising.
good.
Revolving fund is up 2,400 right at the moment. Think we're still waiting on a demo bill, so that could even out, but, the demo in the revolving fund looks like it's a positive as of right now,
Very good.
so that's gotten better.
Appreciate the update on that.
Anything else?
Not from me. Have a good night.
Since you're standing here, I had a neighbor ask me, what's going on with Duck Pond? Sorry.
I really thought I got away with this. So,
Yeah, I know you were not prepared to talk about this, but somebody asked me a couple days ago.
the water ran across the road there 2 weeks ago. So I guess last year when the dam completely blew out and it drained down all the way, obviously there were some concerns. We figured out a plan, what to do. Pit across the road donated their time and some materials, and they went out and put some riprap in the channel to kind of make a dam so the water would come back up to where everybody was happy. It was good for us, good for the people who wanted the pond there. There wasn't a bunch of activity as far as beavers over there for a while, and then they came back, and then they built the dam up on top of that riprap. One of our newer employees went over there to try to drain a little bit of the pond because it was coming up onto the road again. Just the way the beavers had built the dam on top of the riprap, there wasn't a good base, so he pulled one scoop out of there and the whole dam blew out. So we were able to get some of that riprap stacked back up, get the water flow down, put some gravel back on the side of the road, some stone, get it taken care of.
Did you, I know you were looking at, did you end up buying one of the,
We got all the stuff for it.
Okay.
It's all at the shop. Again, I hate to keep referencing this, but we just didn't have the manpower to get that done. And then when we got the manpower, it was kind of middle of winter, so obviously we're not going to do anything there. Plan is this summer to take care of that.
it's good to have a plan. I can repeat that when neighbors come knock on my door.
Yep. So that's that.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you. Have a good night.
you too.
She stopped in with you after we had put in the agenda, so I told her to keep that.
Sure.
She's not meeting yet.
Come on.
Two copies, one of each.
and I'll give you mine, Naomi, when we're done. So this has been an ongoing issue since late February. Our radio system has been absolutely failing where there's been no communication, and we've been taking extra precautions, keeping guys in the building and only responding to calls for service for a significant amount of time if we have radio, but it's extremely unreliable. They've had engineers come in, Goffstown has, IT department, but Two-Way finally came in last Thursday and found there were some frayed wires at the antenna which connects the Goffstown dispatch center to the actual dispatchers. Based on what we're seeing, I ordered that emergency repair, which was $9,879.48 for a new antenna with all the wiring. The equipment's actually cheap. It's the climbers which cost the most to actually install it. While Two-Way was looking, and this is why this couldn't really be put off, the base radio that they're using is a portable radio, which is an inferior radio, and it's obsolete. It's past its useful life cycle. They highly recommend replacing that, even though it's not an emergency, because if they're redoing our whole system, which they've already started doing, the 4 towers, putting all the equipment in, they're redoing the antenna. If they get all that done and we're still having problems, it's obviously the base station because it's obsolete. They recommend replacing the base station radio now. That way they know it's not that component, because if they had to come back out after the system's done, it's going to cost several more $1,000s to reassess. The cost for a new base station radio is $10,090.14. Now, I will have that, I'm very confident I'll have that in my bottom line budget at the end of the year because of vacancies. And I highly recommend we do that just to keep everything on track. The reason they didn't catch this when we started the radio system project is it was believed on their end that it was Goffstown's equipment, since everything's in the Goffstown building. So they didn't really tie it to us until hey, this is broken. Who are we going to pay for it to fix? And Goffstown's like, that's not us, that's where. So, and that came about on Thursday.
And that had been going on for weeks, if not a month, right?
Since late February, significant radio issues. Like, we're not getting out, all it's coming across is static, where as soon as we hear the radio squelch, our guys are picking up the phone and calling to see what's going on. Zero radio communication. It could be just the antenna causing that as a major contributor, or it could be the combination of the two. But they did, when they were assessing the antenna, they just said the base radio is a component that absolutely needs replacing, and highly recommend it. Because if we were to wait, it would end up costing more if they did have to do it later on, and we're able to pinpoint it.
Do you have any idea how much it would add to the 10 grand approximately? If
Oh,
they
no,
had to
that's-
do it separately?
Oh, no, I don't. They just said it would, they just have to send technicians out to reassess the system. What that actually entails, I don't know. I could get a projection from them if you'd like.
No, just curious.
They just said it would add to the bill. Nothing in the tens of thousands, more like thousands. Nothing, I don't think it'd go over 5,000. I also don't know if they have to send climbers back up to connect the base radio to the new antenna. I don't know how they, we took care of the antenna and the cables, but I don't know if they have to, because climbers are almost $6,000 to put the antenna on.
Does this get you any capabilities that you don't have today with the new base radio?
No.
No, nothing as far as
Just-
capability wise?
Whereas actually we can push the
just
talk
works, yeah.
and hear. Yeah, it's kind of important in our line of work.
What do you guys have?
Well, I guess depends how much it goes up. I mean, 15,000's the cap on CIP, right?
Well, if we do it now, there won't be the separate charge because they're doing the antenna work. So it would go up only if we decided to defer and see if it really is the base radio, or if the base radio is contributing any.
It wouldn't make it a CIP anyway. If it was found out to be obviously, once we get the system up, we get the antenna up, if we find out it's the base radio, I'll authorize that all day long as an emergency replenishment or emergency repair, because that's it.
The same company that told us where we needed the towers and all the radio fixed?
So Motorola started with that, and then we kind of identified towers, but yes, Two-Way's been the vendor throughout the whole process.
How many more components are they gonna say we need?
This would be it. We'd be on 4 towers with the receiving tower in Gulfstown and then a base radio. We have a base radio at the station, but we don't really need it. We're not
Don't
looking to
get me
replace
wrong,
that.
we need them to work, and I don't want you guys not to have radios, don't get me wrong, but I mean, we spent all of ARPA money on this, now our radios don't work, and the same company's telling us we need another 10 grand.
Yep, different piece of equipment that
Yeah,
wasn't in the
well, I mean, we could
ARPA.
say that all day long.
We can, but
Should have been
it's,
part of it.
sure, it is what it is.
They were the
though.
experts. So,
It was a Motorola's bill,
no.
not Two Ways.
Motorola provides the equipment in this case.
Any other questions for the chief?
Yes, given that it does have a quote expiration date of June 17th, and we're meeting at that point 2 or 3 times, I think, before then. I guess I am curious how much deferring would add to the bill. And then that would, I mean, really, they've quoted it. If they come out and do this, then we still have a quote that they say they're gonna honor. And then they can do this work and find out if things are working and golden.
It's the timeline of getting the equipment. So they'd have to order the equipment and and Motorola's backed up, I know, with portable radios. I don't know anything about a base station, how long that's gonna take. The trick is while they're already on site doing all these other upgrades and repairs, to have them do everything at once rather than have to schedule a team to come out just to do the base station. That's where it's gonna go up.
Well, but if they've given us a quote, then it shouldn't go up. If they said this quote expires June 17th.
Reasonable.
And then we can find out, do this work, and see if, you know what, nope, everything's clicking, it's great, you should do this at some point.
When would they have this antenna work done by?
They haven't given me a projected date.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Hopefully by June 17th,
Right.
right?
I guess, yeah, I mean, to me, I'd like to hear, I think we have some time to work with this. It'd be better if we had a meeting next week. We don't for the next 2 weeks. But, I mean, I think it's kind of on them for having given us a quote that far out. If they were more concerned about the timeline, they could have given a quote that ended sooner. So I guess I would rather find out, yeah, when is that work gonna be done? And if it's before the 17th, then let's make sure that there isn't some other thing that needs to be done. You know, if they do all this and find out, oh man, you know what, actually, it turns out we shouldn't even do this at all. We need to do some other thing.
Well, no, it's obsolete. We definitely need to do it at some point.
But we may find that once this is done, oh, you know what, we quoted this, but it would actually be even better if we did some other thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't know what the other thing is.
Well, right, I guess my point is, how far can we get with a quote locked in? How far into the process can we get confirming things before we commit to something that has to be done
Right.
with
The,
more uncertainty?
the system's supposed to be done by May though, so I wouldn't really look at the June date. Once you go past May, like the other towers are supposed to be done by May at the latest. They've already started working on them.
But
That's what we're trying to
that was all
coordinate.
supposed to work with our existing equipment. And so now
Correct,
they're saying,
until they found
"You know
these
what,
problems."
You should upgrade this part. Okay.
Well, again, it was just to save money. I mean, if you're not interested, then I
I'm not
can
saying
come
that,
back
I'm saying,
or,
why don't we can take, incremental steps rather than, and we are taking this one.
Mm-hmm.
But why not hang tight, see how this goes, and then reassess based
Mm-hmm.
on how it goes on how necessary this is.
oh, it's very necessary. There's no doubt this is a necessary, it's just a matter of when we're gonna do it. Yeah, they had no idea that it was as bad as it was. Talking to them.
Every single thing this year is gonna be like this with default budget of, okay, it's necessary, but how necessary?
So we
And
don't
again,
even have a
it's
base
the bottom
radio right
line,
now. We have a
but-
portable radio that's plugged in with an adapter, which they don't recommend because you're already, no, it's not.
Well, but it should work once this work is done.
No, since I've been here, we have not had an effective radio system, which is well documented and it's a liability to the town.
If that's the case, then why was this not part of the emergency purchase?
It wasn't because the antenna may solve enough of the problem, which doesn't necessarily make it an emergency, but it makes it a priority, a very high
That's my point,
priority.
is through this year, I'm not saying that it is not a priority, but we are gonna have so many priorities that we need to squeeze into the default budget, that this one may be one of the most important ones, but if we can buy ourselves a month, a month of the
Right.
default budget, and we find out, okay, yep, we're getting a little bit more wiggle room, yep.
Yep,
Or a truck explodes. Well, gosh, sorry, radio. The more time we can buy ourselves, the better, is my point.
no, we might buy ourselves a month, I would agree with that, or 2 months or 6 months, so.
Yeah, but how much money do we spend on the radio system so far?
We're about
I was
800,000,
gonna say, I thought it was somewhere around 800K.
somewhere in there.
We have already spent 800K to get a radio system that works, and now we know we've got an obsolete piece of equipment that's $10,000.
But that's a sunk cost.
Yep,
Right. Are we not gonna make the whole thing as good as it can be for
Yep.
10 grand?
and this is the piece that lets
They
us
didn't
talk to
see
the
that when they
dispatcher.
looked at it for 800, they didn't see that that's old, I can look at it, something that
I'm not defending it, I'm just saying where we are today.
This is the piece that the dispatchers use to talk to us. Everything else just filters the communication to them.
And I'm not making a guess that it is not necessary, it's just, again, there are a million things we're gonna have to worry about between now and us getting the next budget, and how much time can we buy ourselves? I think this allows us to,
Good.
weigh more things together. And I'm not saying, yeah, a month from now, say, yep, okay, we're good, sign it. But let's find out at that point.
Okay.
We don't meet again until May 12th.
Yep.
Yeah, it was good till June 17th, right?
Right. But he's trying to get his radios up and running in May,
Yeah.
and that's the middle of May.
We'll get this done for them. Or shortly thereafter.
Yep, like I said, we can go with the antenna, and if they come back and tell me, nope, it's the base station, then that would be the emergency purchase, so. That would do it.
Sounds like a plan then.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate your time this evening. No problem. Did you want any of these back? Next on the agenda is a tax deed auction discussion. We have NH Tax Deeds and St. Jean Auctioneers here. We asked you to come in tonight, and I appreciate the fact that you're both here. And hopefully this isn't too awkward having both of you here at the same time, but none of the members that are sitting on the board here tonight, with the exception of T.A. Bolton, have done any kind of auction as far as the disposition of the property. So we're hoping maybe you can educate us before we move forward. We know that this is fraught with very specific things that you have to do. So we want to make sure that we're not going to get ourselves into any trouble, and that we also don't exercise you for things that maybe it was just an education on our part. So that's why we're here tonight, and we appreciate you guys coming in. And I don't know if you have a preference on, talking first, second, doesn't matter to me. So, you guys were in the audience first, so if you wanna go first, I'm all for that. And I didn't catch your name earlier. Okay, good, thank you.
Oh, no kidding.
Very nice.
No, I'm good, Jim. Good evening, board members and town administrator Bolton. My name is Jay St. Jean. My brother Jim is behind me. My son Jeff is also with us. We're auctioneers from St. Jean Auctioneers in Epping, New Hampshire. First, I want to thank you all for the chance to speak tonight and present our proposal to sell tax deeded property for the town of Ware. We're a third-generation family-owned full-time auction firm that specializes in the sale of real estate as well as municipal and government live and online auction sales of both equipment and vehicles. Our staff consists of 5 licensed auctioneers, a full-time auction coordinator, 2 full-time marketing specialists, as well as numerous part-time support personnel. Our auctioneers are longtime members of the National Auctioneers Association and do participate yearly in professional designation programs that are designed to help members adapt and succeed in today's ever-changing auction profession. A bit of history. We conducted 2 very successful multi-parcel tax deeded auctions for the town of Ware back in 2017 and 2018. In addition, at various times over the last 25-year period, we've worked hand in hand with both the Ware Fire Department, Police Department, to liquidate surplus vehicles and equipment, both at the White Farm in Concord, New Hampshire, in conjunction with the State of New Hampshire State Surplus Auction, and our facility in Epping, New Hampshire. It should be noted that in many cases, labor and transportation costs were absorbed by St. Jean Auctioneers, and no cost were ever passed along to the town of Ware. We've been good partners and have enjoyed our working relationship with the departments for over 25 years. Why St. Jean Auctioneers, you ask? Well, first and foremost, experience matters. Our experience with conducting tax deeded sales in the state of New Hampshire is unparalleled. In just the past 20 years, we've contracted with over 60 different cities and towns, most multiple times, sell over 1,000 town-owned and tax deeded properties at auction. We are full-time auctioneers and marketing professionals that work tirelessly to maximize the value of your assets via the auction method of marketing. The auction method of marketing is an accelerated and aggressive marketing campaign. It's a targeted approach which is designed to build value and create interest in the auction properties. Key components of this campaign include signage and posting of brochure boxes at select properties, newspaper print and online display advertising in both local and statewide publications, detailed auction brochures mailed directly to abutters of each of the properties, and an aggressive digital marketing campaign that includes weekly e-blast to over 8,500 names on our electronic mailing list. This list is better than any list in the state of New Hampshire. It's a list that's been refined over the past 25 years from us conducting real estate auctions, distressed real estate auctions, not only tax sales, but many bank foreclosures. Anyone looking to buy property at auctions is on that list. The auction will also be featured on the homepage rotator of our website for the duration of the auction. And lastly, an aggressive social media campaign that includes Facebook advertising and Instagram will be utilized. What you have before you is a contract for services. Also, our last auction, multi-parcel auction that we did in Antrim, New Hampshire, just this past February, some sale documents from that sale, and a list of the tax deeded sales we've done since January of 2024 with the results as to what stuff brought versus assessed value on all those properties. Just a few comments about our contract. First, there's a marketing budget in there. That number is a number that we expect to spend on the package for a property parcel auction here in Ware, New Hampshire. These costs totally absorbed by St. Jean Auctioneers. No fees or expenses charged to the town of Ware. Secondly, our fee structure. On Tuesday of this past week, I reached out to the town administrator here in Ware asking for a list of potential properties to see if they would be available prior to our meeting so we'd have some basis for putting together our proposal. We received a list of potential properties on Thursday, which gave us ample opportunity on Friday and Saturday to get out and look at about 3/4 of these properties. Based on those site inspections, we believe that the sale will gross well in the neighborhood of $1 million+ if the majority of those properties are included in this sale. Thus, we proposed a buyer's premium, which is in your packets, which we feel is more than fair compensation for this sale. Again, this fee is paid by the buyers in the form of a buyer's premium, and no commissions or fees are charged to the town of Ware.
And buyer, you mean the property buyer?
Yes, the property buyers at the auctions for each. They would pay a buyer's premium, usually in the area of 10%. Lastly, pertaining to the contract, legal services. The town of Ware reserves a right to engage its town legal counsel, believed to be Drummond and Woodson, I believe, or utilize the services of our attorney, Nick Kanakas of Hamlet and Kerrigan in Nashua, New Hampshire. We've engaged Nick on numerous occasions in the last few years to assist us with pre- and post-auction legal services. These legal services include, but we're not limited to, title searches on auction properties, preparation of deeds, auction sales agreements, closing documents, and collection of balances from successful bidders and recording of deeds. Should the town choose to have St. Jean utilize their attorneys, these costs will be assumed and paid for by St. Jean Auctioneers. It is our opinion that it's always in the best interest of the town to have some separation between selling the real estate and the legal components of these sales. Separating these two functions is the most transparent method and also affords the town a system of checks and balances throughout the auction process. It is also our opinion that should the town require legal advice during the tax sale process, it is best that that advice doesn't come from someone with a financial interest in selling the property. In closing, if you choose our firm, you're partnering with a dedicated team of full-time auction and marketing professionals adept at maximizing the value of assets via the auction method of marketing. We guarantee a fully transparent, conflict-free process, all at no cost to the town of Ware. I thank you for your time, and we certainly look forward to the possibility of working with you on this very, very important auction sale. Jim, I think, wants to say a few words.
Thank you, older brother.
That was one of my questions. Thank you.
Don't believe it, he's the younger brother, obviously. I'm Jim St. Jean. I want to talk a little bit about experience and why it's critically important to maximize your return on these properties. Obviously, it's important for the town to get their back taxes and costs incurred as the date of the auction comes before us. Also, there may be lien holders and may be entitled to excess proceeds of the sale. Equally important, I think, are the people that have lost their properties. We oftentimes forget about that. And through no fault of their own, some people have lost their properties. And obviously, the overage goes to those individuals. And I think it's important to have the experience to get as much as we can at the sale. Jay's talked about set up advertising in the newspapers for our tax deeded sales and our contract. I'd like to talk about what I consider one of the most important parts of any tax deeded sales, whether it's here in Ware, or whether it's down in Salem at the Performing Arts Center where we had 700 people, or the JFK Coliseum where we did an auction for the city of Manchester and the skating rink, or up in Wolfboro on the second floor of a completely restored building. I know if I wasn't an auctioneer, what you think of an auctioneer is somebody who shouts out a bunch of numbers, makes a couple jokes, smiles a lot, I can tell you, that's not the way it is, after doing auctions for the last 43 years. Our competitors have been licensed for 7 or 8 years, and I was thinking about that a little bit. Some 35 years ago, when I was at that point, I didn't know what I didn't know at that point in my career. There are subtleties to this profession when you get to sale. If you don't have that experience, you're going to leave some money on the table for the town and the people who lost their properties. We arrive early and set up, if we can set up the chairs, that's extremely important. Why? The sight lines. You want the bidders to be able to see, and we want to see people. We want to see them arriving. We want to see how they're acting at the sale. So we're there. People will start coming an hour or so beforehand. You watch where they sit, how they sit. You have a husband and wife. Who's got the bidder's card? Very important to watch those things. Those are the subtleties. I don't want to go over everything because I don't want to give away all the secrets of all these years, obviously. We've done the state of New Hampshire for 35 years. And I can tell you this, those are hard people to perform in front of. They're tough, they beat hard, and you bang you around. Those are the skills. It's like being a lion tamer at times. They're after you all the time. And there's a lot of muscle memory in this job of what you do, how you react. As people are registering, my brother and Jeff will watch to see if we got any butters at the sale. It's extremely important if you know who the abutters are, where they're sitting, in which property or properties they're interested in. People that come with multiple checks means they want to buy a number of properties if they can. About 15 minutes before any sale, the investors come. They do it for a living. Sometimes they come as multiple bidders. Sometimes there's one bidder for multiple bidders. You have to know that. You have to know where they're sitting and how they're sitting and are they talking and who's going to bid for the group. All these things, years of experience, is something that I think I have. When the auction begins, you got to remember, you have a minute to a minute and a half to sell these properties. And you got a bunch of different bidders there. You have to know where they are. And if the husband has the bidding ticket or the wife has, how they're looking at you. Are they nervous? Are they blinking their eyes? All the things that you got to know like that. If the investors are bidding, you have to look them off at times. Why? Because they want to beat you up like the people at the state auction. They want that number to come down. They want your lower increments. There are times you go from $50,000 to $75,000. You don't go to $50,000 to $55,000. It doesn't work that way. You leave money on the table that way. The first-time bidders, the family that wants to come to buy a house here, that you guys have, that's a different sale. It's a much slower sale. You have to bring your increments down. You're selling them on the process of buying this piece of property. And oh, and by the way, you're not going to get financing at this sale. So these are cash people. They're nervous to spend $200,000 or $300,000. It does scare people. I'm selling them on the idea of buying. You have to talk about comps in the area. And you slow it down just so they can all take their time. Would I go from 50 to 75,000? Probably not. 50 to 60 or 50 to 55. Those are the things you learn when you do it like we've done it all these years. And each of these sales are different. You have to adjust on the fly with the people that you have. Because we've done the state of New Hampshire auctions so long, there isn't a sale that we've done over all these years that we don't know people there. I know their bidders' habits. They bring their friends along. So it's comfortable for them and it's comfortable for us. I can tell you that there isn't any other auction firm in the state that has the experience that we have. We've done more auctions than all the other auctioneers put together in this state. I want to thank the board for donating your time. And I know a little bit about that. In a prior life, I spent 5 years in the state Senate, 5 terms in the state senate, and 5 years on the ZBA in my town in Northampton.
Wow.
That was when we had fun back then. It's a little bit different now, but yeah, so I want to thank you all for taking time and consider us. We like that, and thank you again.
Thank you.
I know you need more paper, so I'm going to give you more.
Thank you very much.
Chairperson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Wanna stand over here? So thank you so much for having us here. We really appreciate it. My name is Weston Sager. I'm a co-owner of NH Taxi and Property Auctions. This is my dad. Unfortunately, he is also from NH Taxi and Property Auctions, also a co-owner there. We are both licensed auctioneers and attorneys in the state of New Hampshire. This, we were kind of here to answer the board's questions. If the board has any questions about the process, in the materials, we've laid out sort of a rough timeline of how this generally goes. So a lot of the material I think that we've provided is going to be helpful for the board to understand how the tax deeding process kind of goes forward in normal circumstances. But as people who've done these tax deed auctions know, these are inherently messy process. Tax deeding is quite difficult, and we are actually take advantage of educating towns and cities, and recently we did an educational seminar for title abstractors as well about this entire process, because it is fraught, as the chairwoman said at the outset, with all of these different things that can happen. And having attorneys and auctioneers look at every single page of the documentation throughout the process, we have found to be invaluable to towns to make sure that these run as smoothly as possible. While with the transparency of what we produce on our website, we provide all the documents that are provided by the town, also results in very high bid values, because when bidders come, they feel like they know what the property they're bidding on is worth, and whether they're going to need to file a quiet title action after the fact, and whether they're going to be able to get title insurance to finance these properties at some point. Because we wear two hats, it's invaluable throughout the entire process, is what we found, to talk with the board, to talk with the public about this process, because a lot of people are first-time buyers at these tax deed auctions, or trying to buy a property for the first time, either to develop it, build a house on it, or because they're, maybe they're starting to get into investing. It's just really good to have someone who kind of knows the whole world of what goes on here, to answer everyone's questions. So that's really why we started this business. Rick has been a municipal attorney up in the Lakes region for 4 decades, is that right?
42 years now.
42 years. I have been a practicing attorney since, 2015. I practiced in New York City. I practiced in Concord. I was at a law firm, Gallagher, Callahan, and Gartrell, for a couple of years representing Primex. I also worked at the New Hampshire Attorney General's office doing criminal appeals. But I really wanted to work with my dad on this because it's a really fun business. This is a really fun process. It does a lot of good to the community. And that's just something that we really emphasize throughout this process, is how good this is for the town and for the public. Because there is this reputation that these tax deeding auctions are not a good thing for the community. And prior to the law changing about 5 years ago, there was an argument for that, because prior to 5 years ago, the town could keep everything if it held onto a property for 3 or more years. Now, regardless of how long a town holds onto a property, it is constitutionally obligated to return the excess proceeds above what the town is owed in back taxes, interest, costs, and penalty to the lien holders and the former owners of the property. So really in these processes, really throughout every auction that we do, we make sure to educate the public and the town about how good this is, because not only the taxpayers benefiting from this, because the town is recouping what it's owed, it's also getting those properties back on the tax rolls.
And, potentially if these properties sell for quite a bit, which, in our experience they do when we conduct these auctions, New Hampshire is one of the hottest housing markets in the country. I think Manchester was the Manchester area is the #1 housing market according to Realtor.com as of February of this year. So in all likelihood, if this auction were done, in the next few months, you are going to achieve excellent values on these properties. And that's a really good thing, not only for the town, but also for the people who once owned these properties. So, and I want to say too that I've lived in Ware, I should mention this, for about 7 years. I live on Reservoir Drive, and I love this community. I know it very well. And so, unlike other towns that I don't live in, I would be, I think, particularly capable of making sure that everyone in the community knows about this auction and understands that it's a very beneficial thing for the community. And it's someone coming from the community that's doing this, I think, really helps to further that purpose. So what we recommend for the town is, I understand, I also contacted the town administrator and asked for the properties that were contemplated being sold. I provided just some high-level thoughts based on the tax cards and the tax maps, and I've driven by a number of the properties as well. Just to sort of give you an idea of, what are some of the things that the town may need to handle before selling these properties. Notably, properties taken the last 3 years, the town will need to send what's called a 90-day letter out to the former owners and mortgage holders if that has not been done yet before the sale can proceed. So if the town wants to move forward with those properties that were taken in the last 3 years, that will set the auction date back into, say, the fall.
That's listed in your notes section, correct?
That is listed in the notes section, and that's also listed in sort of the general timeline that we provided in our, auction materials.
And we can send those for the town, or we can provide the town a template that we provide other towns, if you want to send them out yourselves.
And as far as the auction itself, we don't really benefit unless we achieve high values at these auctions. So as auctioneers, wearing our auctioneer hat, we are very incentivized to make sure that everyone who may want to bid on these properties knows that these properties exist and are going up for auction. So we make sure that we get the word out far and wide about these sales. And for certain of these properties, we have an ability to put them on MLS. So like the single-family homes, we would provide the costs associated with that. So that way, first-time home buyers, people looking to relocate to Ware, know that this exists. Because I think most people in this room now, when they are trying to figure out if they want to live somewhere, they're looking at Zillow, they're looking at Redfin. And we recognize that. And we're always trying to stay on the cutting edge of our marketing materials to make sure that the people who need to know about this and are going to come to the auction and bid and make sure it's a competitive atmosphere. And it's very important to create a competitive atmosphere for several reasons. One, because you want to make sure you maximize the value of these properties, but also because of the new legal landscape in which we live as of 2020, we want to make sure that the town is protected against potential claims from former owners that the town did not do enough in order to market these properties and get something approaching fair market value. So it's essential not only from a financial perspective, but also from a legal perspective to really make sure that, the marketing is very, very thorough and that, on auction day, whatever the bids come down as being, those are very close to market value so that the town is not going to be challenged later by someone saying the town didn't quite do enough. With that in mind too, the way we like to do our auctions, there's all different ways you can have an auction. We like to have a live auction in the town, I think, like the Ware Middle School, something along those lines with a, large space to accommodate a lot of bidders. And we'll also have, assuming there's a wireless connection there, people joining us in real time online via live webcast. And that allows people who cannot be here for whatever reason. It could be an abutter to the property. It could be someone in California. But that way, you are sure that you're accommodating all the people who need, to bid on these properties, who want to bid on these properties, the opportunity to participate. So, and what we tend to recommend for tax deeded properties, which is a little different from, say, a town-owned property, which is a different process, is that these properties be sold by absolute auction, meaning there's no minimum bid. And that sounds kind of scary, but there's a good reason for that, is because unlike in a traditional sale, the town has really two considerations. First, it wants to get back what it's owed, but second, it also wants to put these properties back on the tax rolls, generating revenue for the town once more. So that's really essential, because if the town says, well, this isn't quite what we're looking for, the town has to wait theoretically several more months, if not years, to resell that property, in which case that tax revenue, that, back tax number is just going to continue to accrue. And that, the odds of the town recouping that amount, particularly in this real estate market being as hot as it is, it's unlikely to be hotter, sometime in the future. So that's what we recommend, but we're always willing to work with the town. You can mix and match. You can sell some properties by absolute. You can sell some subject to select board confirmation. You can sell some subject to a reserve. We are happy to accommodate that. We just need to know that at the outset, so that way we, as auctioneers, make sure that we're advertising each auction property correctly, because there are different regulations that we're governed by as to how we auction those properties under different ways. But, I think that, we really like this. We do a good job. We don't take ourselves too seriously. I live here, so, if a sign falls down, it's going right back up. Just give me a ring and I'll be there.
I can barely get a word in edgewise.
So, I don't think we have that much more to say. If the board has any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Your digital advertising, it says thousands, you've got a bidder list with thousands of names. I mean, how many thousands? 10,000?
So last time I checked, we have about 3,000 bidders. That number is subject to, but those are people who are exclusively looking at, tax deeded real estate, because that's all we do. We don't do foreclosures. We sell the occasional car, but really this is our bread and butter. So each one of those individuals on our bidder list is going to be zeroed in on the type of thing that we sell.
Okay. Last sentence on that page. It says you guys do the real estate closings and auction-related legal support before, during, and after the auction at no cost to the town. Do the buyers pay anything?
No, that's all covered through the 10% buyer's premium.
So there's no extra charge to the buyers, it's just a 10% buyer's premium?
Right.
Correct. I will say, though, just because we say this at every auction, that, because of New Hampshire transfer tax, they'll have to pay that, 0.75% transfer tax, and some recording fees, but that ends up being about 1% of the purchase price. But we announce that on auction day as well.
But that's because they're buying property, not because it's an auction fee, correct?
Correct.
Correct. That has nothing to do with the auction. And one thing I'll say too, just to give you some, examples of, kind of where having both the auction and legal perspective comes in handy, is, we ask, if you go with us, we're going to ask the town to provide us with all the documentation they have on these properties. And we look at that with both an eye as an auctioneer and as an attorney. And we will find things in that documentation that says, well, wait a minute, this is not what we think it is. This needs to be removed. We need to delay this property. This is subject to an easement that requires a disclosure on our website. I mean, all that kind of stuff. An ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. And, having lawyers and auctioneers look at every piece of paper that comes through this auction, we've avoided so many issues. And when issues invariably come up, we're fast to react and we're able to do it and take care of the problem. And in our experience, that has saved towns and cities that we work with countless man hours, and expenses potentially too, because they might need to contact town council. At least it's another call or two trying to get everything figured out. We can do it very swiftly, and that's just a great resource, and that's why we have this business. That's why we started it.
You helped with our deliberative 2024, right?
I was, yes, yes.
Not crazy.
No, I sat there, yes. Yeah, so I was there too, but yeah, I love this town, and, personally, this would be awesome to be able to give back to the community in a real way by, helping to also, I know that, from the last, town meeting, or a lot of the warrant articles didn't pass, and this is a great way to get, revenue back into the community in a very positive way and a very fast way too. So, but are there any other questions for us, or?
I had a question, but I think it's for both of you. What happens if a property doesn't sell? Is there an expense to the town? What?
No.
Can it be put back on for another auction at a future time? What's the,
It's so rare that a property doesn't sell, but if it doesn't sell, there's no cost to the town. I'm sure it's the same with these folks.
okay.
And, you know, at that point too, the town is in a better position to use one of the alternative sale methods. So let's say it wants to sell that parcel to an abutter. Let's say it wants to go through a sealed bid process. Let's say it wants to put that land in conservation if it's a vacant lot. You know, the town is much better protected against claims from the former owner if it's a tax-acquired property, because the town has already sort of satisfied its obligation to the former owner by attempting to achieve market value.
That's a good point.
That's the downside to doing an absolute auction. Somebody could come and bid $1. And if that occurs, town folk are gonna look at you folks and say, what happened here? That's why we always sell with reserve. Subject to confirmation. Subject to confirmation of the board.
Okay.
Well, we have a different take on that. If the people that are at the auction only find a property is worth $1, then at least that gets it back on the tax rolls. The alternative is you don't sell it, and again, you wait, and it's not generating tax revenue as it should be. We have found great success just selling everything, and we've never had a property sell for $1. I mean, we advertise the heck out of these, and we get great value. I think the last auction that you had in 2018,
Or 2019.
2019 was like 35% of assessed value. Our assessed values, our recent auctions, you know, 150% of assessed value
Yeah,
with buyer.
on the
premium.
total. Like you'll have certain, you know,
We have a different real estate market right now than we did.
Yeah, a little different real estate market.
yeah, no, and
Yes.
and
It could
fair.
be said also that,
And we didn't interrupt
weren't-
your presentation.
I'm answering the question, sir.
Was a question?
We both went to the town of Hooksett to present. They decided to go with 2 auctioneers. They'd hire us for the first auction, these gentlemen for the second auction. Different set of properties. The auction we did, this was 2 years ago, brought 108% of assessed value. The auction they did brought about 9.8%. 2 of the properties they sold didn't attain a bid. We've never had that problem, ever.
I will, okay, I was afraid this was going to happen. So there's a couple things about that. Hooksett actually has a phase 3 going on in which they hired us despite those values, because they understood how much value our legal and auction combined services were for the town, despite that being by far our worst auction by a mile.
Yes.
And the other thing too is that, you know, you can only, those are like little, it was like 0.1 acre snippets of little land behind guardrails. There was no property in that auction that was really desirable to the general public. Because what we find is, and we encourage all towns to do this, if there's one or more properties that are going to be broadly desirable, it has kind of a waterfall effect where it raises the prices of the properties behind it. But if you're just selling 0.1, 0.2 acres, you know, along Route 93, you know, that's not going to bring a lot of people in the door. And so that's the issue. But, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, how much marketing you do. We did comprehensive marketing for that auction. We do comprehensive marketing for every auction. And, you know, that was an extreme outlier. And what I'll say is that if the properties just aren't desirable, no one's going to bid on them. Like, it doesn't matter if you're, you know, advertising in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. Like, it makes no difference. So, you know, and, you know, just to say too, to this, you know, question of, well, it sells for $1, you will see incredible variation at auctions whereby, you know, some auctions, you know, you'll have a property that goes for 150 grand, another one goes for $100, because what you have is just the properties have different characteristics and are just not as desirable as other properties. So it's important to have a good mix, because, you know, if you have some properties that the town wants to sell that may be landlocked or, you know, otherwise not terribly, you know, desirable to the general public, you may want to throw them into a larger auction, because you may be surprised at sort of how people will bid on those. It might be $100, might be $500, but it gets back on the tax rolls, generating revenue for the town. It's one less thing for the town to worry about.
I think it's important, we talked a little bit about mailing list. Our mailing list is 9,000, theirs is 3,000.
Obviously, when you have a 9,000 person mailing list, you have, the market penetration is a hell of a lot more than 3,000 people. And I think you look at our advertising budget that we're putting together, it may be substantially more than the lawyers here.
Okay.
Not yet. Any other questions?
No, not right now.
Okay. We had told Mr. Bolton he could ask a question if you guys don't mind entertaining that.
Sure.
I don't know that I have any questions that weren't answered right now.
Oh, okay,
But
that
I
you're not
would like,
obligated.
If
I-
it's
you just-
possible to express an opinion, if that's at all, as a taxpayer, since I was born here, as a large taxpayer, could I just caution the board, they both sound like excellent clients, but
Do you
I
mind
would-
Yeah.
getting that close to one of the microphones at least?
Oh, sure. Pardon me.
I would hate to see us put our properties, our tax dollars, the person that lost their house in an absolute auction. Historically, we've always had reserves that go back to the selectmen. It doesn't hurt anything in the event that something sells for far less than it should. Why would we put ourselves in that situation when we don't have to?
Yeah, the select board has not discussed that at all, so
Yep.
I can't tell you that we have a desire to go one way or the other, but your comment makes sense to me personally.
I'm sure this is going to be the last of any type of public hearing for this. I learned a lot tonight that I would need some time to think about.
Well, you're welcome to come to public comment anytime.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, gentlemen, we really appreciate all the information, and you've given us a tremendous amount to read, so I was gonna ask the board if there were any next steps, but I think our next steps are to read everything that you guys have presented, and then get back together and talk about what our next steps might be. So, awesome information, thank you very much, appreciate
Very well
everything.
presented by both.
Yes, thank you very much.
Will we need to come back, or you guys?
I don't think so. I mean, we'll let you know that we've made any decisions. But I suspect that we'll probably have a conversation about this before we make any decisions.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And maybe, so that both groups know, we're not meeting again for a few weeks. We
Yeah.
may not talk about it then, it could be a couple months. So,
Yeah, thank
We'll
you.
be around.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
good night.
Night. Yeah, so I think the best thing to do would be to read through all these and then come back and figure out what our next steps are. So, we've got a couple weeks to read them. I don't know if we want to put this on the 12th or if we want to wait till June, but we can talk about that later. So think about that. Tremendous amount of information.
Very well presented by
Yeah,
both.
More than
Pretty-
I expected, so I'm.
Impressive
wow,
presentations.
yeah. All right. The next thing we had was the personnel policy, but we just got that today, so there's no way we can go through that. And you did, I was gonna say, and you did say that in your email,
I
so,
did.
thank you.
We had a couple absences, so I didn't get it out like I wanted to. Everybody's fine. I just thought I would provide you a copy versus all of the page. Now, I see that, for some reason, we start on page 4. Nothing, the table of contents has not been finalized.
Is that why it's not there?
Yeah, I-
Okay.
No, the table of contents
It's
is
there.
there, but please don't look at those page numbers, because you
Oh,
start
I
on
see.
page 4.
I see.
But,
So nothing's missing, I
no,
guess.
no, nothing's missing, but I did just thought you would have a hard copy versus trying to use it electronically and use our paper versus your paper and ink.
Now you tell me.
Excuse me?
I said, now you tell me. I printed it out, that's all.
You didn't read the email then?
I did.
Well, I said I made a copy.
Just kind of looking at it beforehand.
Yeah, no, and I highlighted is what we talked about and not talked about, what I added from the fire department. And then there was one paragraph that Jason wanted. I did not spend all the highlights on the drug and motor carrier one as well as.
So
the-
mostly it's the fire.
It's mostly the fire that's
Okay.
yellow. And then I did yellow the one of overtime that Jason talked about, because you did time work. Those are the only in the body of it. The appendices I did not highlight.
Okay. And has the fire chief looked at this?
I
Okay,
can
so he
gladly
doesn't.
send it to him.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was just say, he might wanna take a look at it in
Yeah, because those
parallel,
policies were not under him.
but just to make sure that this
Yeah.
seems like it makes sense as far as where it should be and that sort of thing. Yeah, that's a good point.
And then I did send you also, and printed you if you wanted, the one that Benji did for the performance evaluation, and then the one that I had gotten. Both of them are fillable if you have them on your email, but obviously you printed them out as hard copy. And you can change, I'm sure Benji's could be changed if you wanted to describe differently categories than what New Boston used.
Oh, for
Before we
sure.
move on to that, does anybody have any other questions about the personnel policy review? In general, before we move forward? Okay, all right, thanks. All right, the employee evaluation samples, like you said, there's the two. One you got from the listserv, I guess, and the other was from,
Yeah, Benji had forwarded it to, I think you and I, and then I forwarded to the rest of everybody.
okay.
Equally, they're both fillable. Either one can have your, you can change it however, custom fit, however you'd like.
Yeah, and just to be clear, more for confirmation on my end, these would be for non-union and possibly also for not department heads, meaning we would continue to use the other form if we so choose for the department heads. So I think that's something we can decide at a later date, but
Yeah, I mean,
non-union for sure, right?
non-union for sure. I mean, I don't know why we couldn't pick one that would encompass department heads too, but yes,
Yeah.
non-union for sure.
And this would not impact the raises that we gave in April, March,
No.
April, because that's already done. This would be so that we could do merit raises in the calendar year of 2026. That seems really weird to say.
Right, I think, I took the intent that we would share this with everybody so they know that we're gonna be judged
Right,
on.
right, but I just wanted to make sure everybody
Okay.
on this board was clear and everybody at home was clear. We're not trying to shoehorn in
Right.
the raises that we just did. That's done.
Right.
This would be for future years. Okay. All right. Did everybody get a chance to look at the two forms?
Look at, yes. Study, not so much.
Okay.
So the one I sent was just one that non-union and department heads got where I worked. It was up to me and I was doing my own, there are things I changed, I'm not saying letter for letter. I just think it's a good start, and I hadn't looked a lot at the one Naomi had either, I like a lot of things about that too, by the way, so I think it's a good start at doing the evaluations that we're looking to do in the future. There's, if we were gonna really get down and rewrite it, I do have opinions about, I would personally like to see some things changed on it, but I think it was a good start at it, and
And
it's not a ton of categories, but I think it touches on important ones in most departments. I do the numbering system a whisker different, and I think some of the explanations is a little, maybe redundant from one or the other, so you really put, so when you do these, you should put a lot of, as a department head, you should put a lot of thought into it, or a select board. And so you put a lot of thought into, communication, and then you go to another category and it has something else that kind of touches on that perhaps. So that, would rewrite it here maybe, but I really thought it was a good, base for merit raises. It's,
Isn't New
gives you the
Boston
rating
doing-
system.
Is New Boston doing merit raises on this?
We started this year, yes. Yeah.
I like the
And
type
it's
of
brand new
evaluation.
to us, and they were, what's that?
I like the check the box on the type of evaluation. Original, promotion, annual, special, warning, or separation. So I like that. I
Well-
also like the summary up front.
What I didn't like, I guess, as, exceeds and exceptional. I guess you just gotta read through them, but I guess everybody's gonna decide what they think an average raise is. For whatever reason, in my own personal head, I feel that a 3% is a good average for an employee that does a good job. If you exceed, it should be a little higher. If you need, some work and you're not quite pulling your weight, it should be a little lower. And it seems like when you meet your expectations or even exceed them from time to time, it still only comes out to a 2% average. That's what I don't like about the numbering system. But you can renumber. It starts at 0 and goes to 4. You could do from whatever, 1 to 5 or whatever. But that's what I didn't like about it. And that's my only because it says, meets expectations, performs all tasks satisfactory and consistently, but only infrequently exceeds expectations. So that's doing your job and sometimes a little bit better, but it's only a 2. Then exceeds expectations, which, performs performs at high level frequently and above expectations. That's a 3, which, way I visualize it in my head, that's the average. And then there's one above exceeds, which I don't know.
Well, I think it's 2 parts. There's one, the kind of what numbering scale makes sense. I do think 1 to 5 makes more sense than 0 to 4.
I agree.
If it's disconnected, you'd end up generating a weighted average, which then has to be applied to each year, like what did the board choose to do for raises? So if it's,
The voters.
well, a proposal and an approval,
And the
sure.
voters, And the voters, not.
Yep. But it would be, okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, 3% would get you average, or, if you were 3 across the board, that would be average, which would then correspond with what was the average raise that the voters approved in that calendar year. And
Correct.
it could be 3, it could be 5, it could be 1, like,
Sure.
just whatever.
Right.
So I would tend to label that as a 1.0 or 100%, as opposed to a percentage of the percentage.
Yeah, yeah. If it were 1 to 5, 3 would be your
Baseline
baseline.
1.0.
Yep.
See, I received this and also gave it, and the trouble I had giving it was trying to, the employees that I felt was average, above average, at least make sure they got a 3%, but then grade them on what the narrative is, so that's what was tough about it. But I think it's a good base, and can always tweak it to what fits our town. I thought it wasn't, the only hard part about giving it, I guess, was trying to give what I felt was a fair average for percentage-wise of a raise. Other than that, I thought it was a fairly easy one to present to an employee. I didn't have a hard time with it other than that part.
I mean, we could, maybe this is getting a little too far, but if we had a process, regardless of the form that's followed, and you end up with numbers for each person at the end, it doesn't have to be a strict, well, this person was at a 2.08, which means they have to get a this % raise. It could be, okay, the department head comes to us with their list of people, their list of numbers that came out of it, and the list of raises that they propose. So the department head gets to make final proposal to the board to approve, but they'd be able to say, I'm asking for these individuals, these are the reviews, but here are the people that, like, maybe a piece of paper didn't totally grasp, or a formula didn't totally grasp, what they did this year, for better or for worse. But at least it would be, probably in the ballpark of what the numbers say.
I guess to me, and I think we discussed this just a little bit a few weeks back, but I guess to me, to give a fair evaluation, not show any favoritism, the numbers should come out to the math. That should be the percentage of the raise. I've never seen a merit raise any different. I haven't gotten a million of them, but I have gotten, we used to get them in Ware when I first started. And it was done the same way, totally different forms than what we have in front of us, but it was, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever it was, divided by the numbers, and that was your percentage of raise, so.
I think if
I'd
you-
like to
but if
see
you
the,
disconnect them though, it lets you evaluate somebody honestly and give them really honest feedback versus, well, they really deserve a little bit more of a bump, so let me bump one of their numbers up. And then they come back and they're like, well, why did you, tell me I need to improve this next year when last year you said it was a 3, this year you say it's a 2, like what happened? Say, well, last year I was trying to give you a little bit of a raise bump. But if you separate them, it would help that.
Differently too, if we do that, so that if your score on this is 3, you get a 3%, if your score is a 5, you get a 5%. What if we only approve a 3%, average across the board, or nothing gets approved? We can still give them an average score of 5 if that's what they deserve. They're not gonna get any percentage of a raise because the voters didn't approve that, but they can still get an average score of 5. So it divorces the score from what the percentage raise would be.
But it still allows the score to inform it.
Correct, correct.
see, to me, it just completely throws the number system out the window, then we might as well not have it.
Well,
That's really how the merit, this is really, is really how the merit system works, when you get raises.
I think it makes it so if somebody came to this podium, they had a spreadsheet in front of us that said, here are the 10 people that work for me, here are the 10 numbers that came out of their reviews, and here are the 10 raises that I'm proposing, and highlight, well, and this one's different, this one's different, this one's different, these two went up a little bit, this guy went down a little bit, this is the pool of money you gave me, this is what they're gonna see, and here's why. And then they have to justify why they deviated from, like, what numbers came out. And explain their merit was or was not as the numbers say, because, we're not, unless we grade on like 100-point scale, it's,
well, you'd end up doing a bell curve so that you have half of your employees are making over 3%, and the other half is under 3%. If your total's going to have to equal 5%.
To me, if you get this so that it is evaluating the employees the way we want to evaluate them, the math should come out to what we're looking for. And Beth had a good point when she was in here a few weeks ago that, maybe we should do them before the vote so that we know what we're gonna ask for the voters. Instead of saying 5%, but we're only giving 3. We do them already, we know what each department is looking for money.
Well, they're supposed to be done in November anyway, aren't they?
So, we haven't been doing that, so if we started, then that would fix that dilemma.
But are you saying that to do a true one could come below your 3?
Right.
So how,
Because if you
what
get them-
about a range, which is this one that gave you a range? I'm just saying, this gave you a 1 to 2.5, a 2 and a 6 to 3.5, a 3.6 to 4.5, a 4.6 to 5. I'm just saying, does that matter? Like, I'm just trying to I know what you're saying, because I know,
Well, not out of all 100 employees in town are gonna be average or above. There's
that's
gonna
the
be,
chart there.
there's gonna be some, there's always gonna be that person that you
Right.
could critique on a little bit, and so they won't always be the average that we're shooting for. Which, if we do them in November before the budget's final, then we don't need to have the average pool of 3% or 5%, or, this is the number that we're looking for. You're
But I guess
getting 5, I'm
are you
getting
trying to do
3.
the number to the percentage, I guess, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's talking about a dollar amount.
Okay,
You're
no, I
asking
just,
for a
we talked
bucket
about
of-
3%,
I'm
but
just
then
gonna-
somebody's 2 point something, is that what they would get? Is that
Yes.
what you're thinking? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
so-
he's saying add it all up and then.
Okay, I was
and
just
say,
trying to
we're gonna ask
understand
for-
when he kept
I'm just
saying
gonna throw a
3%,
number out,
3%,
$25,000 instead of 2.5%.
So when we used to get them, when I first started, that's how you got them, because I still got my old ones. You got 2.8, and that's how this one worked, was you got 2.8, 3.2, whatever. You take your 0 through 4, times how many questions you got, or add them together rather, and divide by how many questions you got, and that gives you exact percentage, and that's the only way I've ever received or given a merit raise, ever, in the 25 years of being in this particular business.
One of the flaws of either approach is that if each category, and I'm picking on the New Boston one because it's on top there, but if each category is weighted equally, then, the very last category is decisiveness. Is that just as important as job knowledge understanding? Because if you are using it with an equal weighting to go into somebody's raise, directly or indirectly, which we were arguing a minute ago, then you're saying, you end up the incentive you set is, well, gosh, if my options are, I have all this job knowledge, I'd better make sure that they see me being decisive to make sure all the numbers are bumped up equally, versus, maybe it actually is most important that job knowledge is key. So it would be better for the town if somebody were in training rather than, communicating and collaborating. If you say, wow, you were off at training for a month, you weren't here talking to people, like, well, but that was to the benefit of the town. So, again, equal weighting means
that should
each
be-
one can impact the raise.
That should be known by the person given the evaluation. So the questions should be questions that fit our evaluation that we want to grade our employees on. But the categories shouldn't be one category more important than the other category, and if like you just said, you had somebody out to school or whatever, we know that as a department head, or the department heads know that as a department head, we as select board knows that if we're grading the department heads. I mean, there shouldn't be, I don't know how else you do it. I started in 2001, and this is how merit raises have ever been. So I don't know how, that's the point of it. Otherwise, you just kind of give a bag of money and say, give what you want. Because in the end, you can just kind of say, oh, this one I kind of get along with a little bit, but you ain't gonna say that. But if you're gonna if you're gonna allow them to do the numbers, come out to 2.8, but say, geez, I really like them to have 3 and give them 3, then why don't we just pick a number and give it to them again, When you do it fair, when you do it like either one of these really, the number comes out to what the number is. And it was proposed to me, I didn't do it on any of mine, it was proposed to me on this that you could pick 2 of them. I didn't think of that till after I'd done mine, but, which gives a little bit different percentage, but.
What do you mean, pick 2?
Answers?
Yeah, you could pick like a 2 and a 3, but,
So you could pick 3 and 4?
yeah, I didn't do that, cause I didn't,
That would be awkward.
yeah.
Yeah.
but-
Then
That way
you
you
get- then you
could
get a
adjust it a
different
little
number
bit.
for that number.
But,
3.5.
again,
Pick
right,
7.
well, exactly, yes, you get the 3.5 if it's in between the 2 categories, but I'd sooner if we're drawing one up to pick the numbers that we like, not have in-betweens and.
Right. No, I mean, I get it, having it come out to say, okay, you calculate out to 4.5%, to 4.5, you get a 4.5%. That's certainly easy, and it's across the board, it's the same, there's no mixing or matching with that. Just coming from a private sector, though, I can get 4s and 5s on my reviews, but I still only get like a 1.5% at most of a raise. It just, it all depends on what the company does.
Well,
In our case, we might say, let's say we say, okay, we're going to ask for another $25,000 for raises, which is going to equate to approximate, an average of 3%, just pick across the board. Some people might get 5, some people are only going to get 1%. That's an all or nothing bucket that way. There's no, if the voters say no on that, then nobody gets a raise. And, no matter what their score is. So it's hard to equate, the company does great, we get bonuses, and we're more likely to get raises. Company does not so great, we're not gonna get any bonuses, and we're probably not gonna get any raises either. But we might get a little bit of something in there someplace. So it's hard for me to equate what's going on, the different things, and to be able to come out and say, oh, you got an average score of 4. Yeah, it's 4%.
Well, I guess I don't see the point in doing, because that's what a merit raise is though. So either you're gonna do a merit or you're not. Because then, when we did get evaluations, didn't get them every year, but after they quit doing merit raises, we got evaluations. That is just what it was. We got our evaluation, went in the folder, didn't really mean nothing, and we got the raise that select board gave us. So it's one or the two. And I agree that I've always thought it was tricky putting raises on the ballot. I always thought select board ought to decide if it ought to be in the budget or not, because at the end of the day, if the voters say no, they ain't get nothing anyway. That's a real kick in the teeth, and I can tell you from someone that had to happen 6 years in a row, that when you get evaluated and you get given a piece of paper like this, that we're getting graded on that, and you work your hardest to get it, and then you give it to the voters, and the voters decide they don't give a raise that year, then what was it for? I think the raises ought to be in a budget anyhow, for a certain percentage, but that's another argument. But you have, grading on a number is what merit is, and I guess that's what we talked about. If we want to do a different style raise, that's fine, but that's what merit is.
Well, I agree, but I'm just saying a merit-based raise doesn't necessarily mean that your raise is going to increase what your score is but somebody who scores higher should get a higher percentage of a raise. They should get a bigger bump than somebody who's not doing anything. So it works. It'll work either way. It's just you're not tying the score directly to the percentage, but it does influence what that percentage is going to be.
I guess based on my work history, I think everywhere I've worked has been department head gets a pool of money that they divvy out to their employees that work for them, but it is based on what's in the review. And so the equivalent for that, of that for us would be, we tell a department head, you get this pool of money, but you have to come and justify, you have to tell us how you want to divvy that out, and you have to justify that with the reviews. So the reviews are helpful for the employees so they know what to improve or what not, what they're doing exceptionally. But it's also useful for us to be able to scrutinize the department heads when they do make that ask of, these are the raises I would like to have on the ballot, for instance. And then we can say, well, why? Why is this person, almost certainly in non-public, but like, why is this person higher? Why is this person lower? And then they can go to the piece of paper, and that's where it's not somebody making it up. It's, here are all the notes. Here it is last year. Here it is, for their entire work history here. Here's something that changed this year. And that's why I'm justifying what their merit was as like the actual boots on the ground overseeing people. And why I think, given that, if it calculated out to a 2, but I think they really deserve a 2.5, here's why. So it's just like, there's like a buffer in place of the department head that allows for, I guess, the humanity of it all. Like we cannot create a form perfectly enough to judge every person in every situation to know this is their merit. And so I think we have to rely on the department heads to be able to come up with that final determination, but a justifiable determination based on employer reviews.
Now, something that we could look at, instead of having it as a warrant article, we look at what our surplus would be at the end of the year and say, okay, we can set aside some of that.
Yeah.
And then it's not on the ballot. It's a pretty set, it should be a pretty set amount that we can do that with. And it doesn't go back to the tax.
And I don't disagree with that either, and I don't know if it's getting off course, but in the town of Ware, that has been very historical for, not lately, but, for raises to be kind of the butt of conversations, negative conversations, I guess, and to be an employee and to get graded on, and then in March get told, never mind. I mean, there isn't worse for morale, and I think as the highest level supervisors in town, it's up to us to kinda try to curb that. And that's a good, what you just said is a good idea, but, I think when we think about these raises, we also need to think about how we're gonna appropriate the money, because if you tell employees, this is what we're gonna do, this is gonna be based on your raise next year, and then come March and it gets voted down, and
You know, if they're done in November, then we'll know what the number is.
I agree, but it could still get voted down.
I know, but if we,
But for the surplus, yeah, right, yeah.
I'm just, I mean, again, coming from the, working in businesses all my life, to see a 5% raise, or even a 3% raise year after year, that's just, you just say, wow, that's a lot. When I used to think, if I get a 2%, I think that's a lot on my salary. So, I'm not saying they don't deserve it or anything, it's just hard to equate the public sector and the private sector, and I just think there are a lot of people who work, their own jobs or anything where, whatever they earn, that's what they earn. They don't get a, they don't get a raise every year. It's just I put more effort in, and therefore I earn more money. If you own your own business, you don't sit and give yourself I'm gonna give myself a 3% raise this year.
And there is, for whatever it's worth, there is the equivalent of you work hard all year, and then through no fault of your own, the company makes no money.
Right.
Marketing dropped the ball. Sales didn't make a sale.
All the time,
I worked
sales.
nights, weekends, all year for nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, now this is just talking about the merit-based part of it too. We also have, the cost of living increase that we could provide too, and we can just say, okay, every year we're going to look at whatever the inflation rate is or something like that and just tie it in. And that way automatically everybody's gonna get a 1% or 2%, whatever it is. I don't even get that.
I guess I thought that's how we got here, was that argument, if we should do that or if we should do merit. I thought it was majority opinion that we did merit, and because I think that's how we got away from merit in this town to a flat raise, went so many years without it. Now I think most departments have gotten wage increases, or what do you wanna call it there? They've got their wages bumped, not just a percentage. They've gotten their wages increased. To most departments, are much more fairly paid now than they were.
Yep.
So, that's why I was not against going back to merit, because I think wages have been bumped in this town. It missed a lot for a lot of years, and it's been corrected for the most part. So I'm in favor of going back to merit. I don't know how to do it any other way than not. To be fair, I just don't see it to be fair if you don't go by some sort of numbering system. At the end of the day, you're gonna give them what you want anyway, I guess, but.
Okay. Can we go back to the forms themselves?
Sure.
I think there's a lot of good points that y'all made, and I wrote down some notes here so that we can do this. Discussion was good, but I'm not sure tonight we're actually gonna decide which way the pool of money versus the percent of money and that sort of thing, but I think you have to start with the form.
Yeah.
So if we can get back to that. I'm not discounting anything you said, I did take some notes.
I guess the only thing is.
The form itself,
Is how you're gonna,
the more categories you have, the harder it is to fill out for every employee that you have.
I agree.
But it also, on the reverse side, gives the employee receiving the review, they get more fidelity
Yep.
as far as what the feedback is. So
Yep.
there's a trade-off there.
if they screw up in one category, it doesn't impact them quite so hard.
Right. I do tend to personally agree with one of the comments that was made earlier about there is a hierarchy to these things. Attendance is important, but it's maybe not as important as my job knowledge and my safety in some roles. So just, probably not good examples, but just using those as examples.
I guess I would disagree that one category would outrate the other category, I guess. We gotta pick categories that are all important to us, to rate our
Right.
employees. And
Right,
this
so
has
make
always
sure that
been
they
my
are the
argument as
ones that
a,
we wanna make, that's where I was going with that comment. If we wanna make sure that what we put on this paper is things that we truly think are the meat, not,
right. I agree.
not the, 16 courses that come later for
And
dessert.
it's hard for a town because we're rating such different jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a highway worker, it's nowhere near the same as a building inspector or building inspector secretary, but we're gonna get the same review, so it is important, I mean. And I would hope that when it comes to, say decisiveness, I wouldn't think that a secretary should have the same decisiveness as a road foreman, but the person giving the review would take that into account. All right,
Absolutely, it's
what
based
you
upon the
did-
job that they're doing,
exactly.
not the absolute.
Exactly.
It's based on their job.
And that's what I like about Naomi's is there's way more categories, which I don't like, however, they're shortened to the point. Where the one I brought is very lengthy and, again, redundant on a couple. I would, again, re-rate some of them if it was me, but, so those are the pros and cons between the two. I think there's 17 on Naomi's and I think 6 on mine, so there could be a happy medium on the number for sure.
I did like the employee strengths and the areas for improvement, on the more lengthy form.
Yep.
Summarize those. I do think that's good. This one doesn't really seem to have an overall summary to it. So I like the New Boston form better in that regard.
Yep. I mean, for a lot of them, anyways, for any municipal job, attitude, dealing with the public, safety, communication. Attendance does seem silly, but when you have someone that's abusing attendance, that's a good way to make them pay better attention, So I think
Kind
that's
of
important.
in the reliability thing of New Boston's.
You're not reliable to come to work.
If you don't show up, you're not reliable, right?
So I know what Salem
Yeah,
was
and if you
mentioning
have
that,
a-
it was just a, I know you were just using it for an example, but in the municipal world, attendance can be abused more so, I think, than in the private world, because
Well, I'm
it's
not-
put up with a little more. And I know you were just using it as an example.
No, but I agree with your point about people should be rated based on their job description within a category. My point was more about the categories next to each other. So like it doesn't, maybe that actually does matter per job description, but yeah, pick a different one. Is planning and organizing as important for, I don't want to pick on anybody. but I
Right,
hesitate
and
to
that's
throw
what
any job out
that's
there.
what makes these hard, and I think as any employee, that I've grumbled behind the scenes, well, that isn't fair, this fits more the town office, or this fits more the police department, we think anybody's gonna grumble, and that's what's hard about having a general evaluation over a town is so different from job to job.
Well, I think that's where it's gonna be up to the department head to be subjective on this, because
Right.
if, like, just look in the front page, quality of work, Benji and I both do top-notch work, so we're gonna get a 5. But the quality of the work, he's, or the quantity, we're both doing the same amount, but his quality is much higher than mine, and somebody has to come back behind what I do and fix everything. My quality isn't quite there. Things are gonna be, that's not exactly a fair assessment.
Well, that's what I actually like about Naomi's is it is more cut dry, so it should, just an example, again, there is a quantity and quality where mine would have something like that together.
Yeah.
And that would make this one hard where this one's easier.
Or we both do 5 jobs, we do the same quantity, but your quality's so much better, or I can make all kinds of busy work, so it makes it looks like I'm doing a lot, but there's no quality to it.
Right, and she has, this has a lot it spells all those out separately, which makes this one easier as a giver.
It's a little less subjective,
Yeah.
yeah.
I like on both of them, and I think especially where did this come from again?
I think it came from Enfield, and I just modified it and put our name instead of theirs.
Okay, but just, so they both do it, but I think this modified Enfield one does better, is tell the person conducting the review how to fill it out. Which, if we're trying to make things even, we're saying, you will follow these steps to fill this out, and each category, it's a lot, and if you had a department with 15, 20 people, this is gonna take a long time to do
Yeah.
well, which I think it's either then gonna take a long time and we're losing a department head to a lot of time, or it's not gonna be done well.
But I think we ever put stout to these, which we haven't in this town in a long time. I think it's important. I think it's worth sacrificing a week of a department head's time. Probably not maybe a solid 40 hours in 1 week, but take a month to do them.
Especially a first time.
I think it's worth it if we as a board, or you guys as a board, in future years gonna make something of it. That's the only thing. It's frustrating to go through all this as a giver and as a receiver to get it to throw it in the wastebasket after that. And that was my attitude kinda, when I was department head here, we'd get them and the board wouldn't do nothing with them, so. There's a couple years I didn't even do them, they didn't even know I didn't even do them, cause I'm gonna do all these and didn't do them anyway, so.
But this also gives the employee can look at this and see just
How
what he
it's
needs to
done.
do to improve.
Yeah. Well, and also how they were rated, like, if they would argue, well, this is unfair, it's like, well, no, I followed these steps.
Right.
To get here.
I definitely think there ought to be a spot on whatever one we drop for employee to give an opinion back. It ought to be a summary.
Yeah.
And then they don't have to sign it until they take it home, wrap their mind around it, and if they wanna.
No, we could add this whole page to this one.
One of the benefits that they have for using an HR company for doing all of this for us is that the forms are all online, and I can go on and I can self-evaluate and say, okay, my job knowledge, I think, is a 4. I think my quality is a 5, things like that. Then the manager can go in and answer the exact same questions. And you
Yes.
say, okay, you gave yourself a 4, I think it's a 5. Or you gave yourself a 4, I think it's a 2.
Sure.
And then then you have to explain, then they explain why. And say, I was like, wow. So at least it gives me the opportunity to try to be as honest as I want to be on that. I mean, maybe somebody goes through and marks down 5 all the way down the line. I think most employees will make themselves average. I'm a 3. I'm a 3.
Right.
I think I'm a 4.
I think someone really wants to do well in their job does harder on themselves than the supervisor,
Right.
most of the time. I found out. So we have had to give ourselves in history, and I always felt like I gave myself a worse one than my supervisor gave me, and then I found out about other employees. You get the one, has an attitude about it, been here 48 years, don't wanna do it. You just handle it the way best to handle it. So yeah, back to, I guess, the form, like Janice said, I don't know, I didn't read every sentence of this one. I went through and seen all the headlines, and I don't have a strong opinion if we should keep them all or just some of them or get rid of a couple. I think it's a good format. I do like how it explains every single category.
I like it, generically speaking. I think possibly we could take the dealing with coworkers and public contact and just make that, how do you deal with others? Because hopefully you're not treating your coworkers different than you are the public, so we could combine those,
I don't know, though.
I don't know.
possibly.
The ones facing the public a lot, I think. I mean, the guys in the, DPW don't have as much public interfaces like some of the people in the office here.
Right, but when they do, are they, how are they treating people? Coworkers, just,
I think when you treat
Public.
coworkers, that kind of speaks to how you work as a team versus being friendly to the public, I guess.
Or Facebook comments.
and then I think the last two, productivity of employees and employee evaluation and development, are those for supervisors only? They're not for the employees, if I'm reading them properly. So those wouldn't have to be filled out for every single employee.
Which aligns with when it says to do the math.
Right.
On page 6, divide the employee's total score by the number of applicable topics.
Right.
And you may find that with others as well.
Yeah, that could be, you could say that this doesn't have public contact, so it's an NA. Okay. That could
You
be
can
a
always
way to
add-
do that.
I think the comment was there was no overall summary. You could add it somewhere.
Right. Yeah, I think maybe we start with this one, the Enfield modified, and add,
One of you
The
said add the
overall
back
performance.
page of the
right,
one I brought
Right,
to,
right.
the one the owner brought. I
And-
think that's a,
and the,
I think that's a good start. 'Cause
Right.
I do like the back page. It was helpful for me, to justify my final number by my overall summary.
yeah,
And the professional development, I found, I did not write anything in that till I did it with the employee. And for highway, it's kind of tough, there isn't a ton of stuff, but I did have one employee come to me with a specific thing that he would like to do, and so we filled that in together, and that, I found that very, helpful, cause I would've never thought he'd wanna do that, so I'm gonna find that class for him, so.
and I also like the type of evaluation that's on the New Boston one, so maybe we can incorporate at least some of those. I'm not
You
sure what
have-
a special would be.
We do have two up at the top, type of review.
Right, but
probationary and-
maybe some of the others go in there, like it's a probation, original or warning or,
Yeah, I don't know what a special would be, but
Right, I don't know what a
I think a
special would
warning
be.
could be.
warning
should
sounds
stay on
appropriate,
there, 'cause
yeah,
We've run into that before.
yeah.
Could a special be a extended warranty? Extended probation.
Just make sure you get a receipt.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care how many you leave on there, I don't know if you need all of them, but I think
No, I don't think we need
original
all
and
of them.
probational and warning ought to at least be on
Yeah.
there.
And we may decide that, we need something else and add it to the next.
Yeah, we
page.
could always write on it something else, I mean, it's not like
Other.
you can't,
Just throw
yeah,
another on there.
yeah. Fill in the blank. So, maybe start there and see
Yeah.
what that looks like.
Yeah.
Maybe do that, update, and then maybe ask the department heads, tell us your feedback. If you had to give this review,
What would you?
what would you think about it?
Yep.
Does that sound like a good first step?
Yeah,
Yep.
and just tell them to keep in mind that it's, the one thing I could see a department head come back saying is, well, this question doesn't exactly fit my department, we know that, but just overall, how.
Still be good to hear the feedback.
Absolutely,
But,
yeah.
acknowledge that, yeah, we may already know, but tell us anyway. Yeah, two little typos on page 7, under certification. Certification is spelled wrong for by rater and by reviewer.
Yeah, we'll use the back page from the New Boston one instead
Okay.
Yeah,
of
I
As a
think that
replacement
we were
page?
gonna
Okay.
replace
I thought
it with
was
a whole
an
back
addition.
page,
Okay.
yeah.
You like I's in your certifications?
I think I just flipped around.
No, there's missing an I. Come on, both of them.
So we're gonna take the checkoff forms for the review type.
Mm-hmm,
Add the back page in New Boston to this one,
right.
share it with the department heads,
And add something about an overall performance summary.
which isn't this here?
You put the whole back
I
page
think
on,
if I
right?
take this whole back page, talks about the
Yeah,
overall
yeah.
summary, right here.
Okay, that's fine. I thought it was just the signatures and the comments, but
Yeah,
no, overall summary, yes.
I put the whole back
That works,
page.
yep.
Yeah.
That works.
Okay.
Sheet.
And then share it with the department heads. Now, the only one I
Yeah.
wouldn't share it with is PD, because they do their own.
Yeah.
Right, they have, their own.
No, I think it's good.
Yeah, and ask them to actually provide some feedback for us, not just, yeah, it's okay. Or if that's what you make me do, I'll do it.
Right.
You know, be nice
Be
to
what
get
they're
some
gonna be made to
specifics.
do next year, so if there's something they don't like.
Could be.
then-
It could be.
I mean, I think we all said something a little bit about it's kind of long. So if they have any recommendations for, especially consolidating, removing.
Right. I found the consolidated questions harder to
They would be.
answer than
Yeah.
the single ones, 'cause.
Yeah. I mean, we might not, but I'm just thinking that
Right.
kind of feedback,
No, I
because
get
none of
you.
us could pick something, but maybe somebody has an idea that we can think of.
Okay, ready to move on?
Yes,
You sure?
yeah,
Okay.
a little better than I thought it was, to be honest with you.
Oh, well, that's good, I guess. We have numerous items on the consent agenda this evening. If no one objects, I will not read the complete list, because it is published in the agenda. Is that all right with everyone? But in summary, we have 2 veterans credits, 5 exemptions, 1 intent to excavate, and 2 charitable exemptions in there for signature. So, I believe at this point they have at least 3 signatures, but
I'm going
you're,
through them now.
you're working on them right now, okay? All right, so that takes us to the administrator's report.
I'm gonna hand down to you, I have, Pam gave me, or, I'm sorry, James swore in 2 more at Parks and Rec for the oaths of office, so you can have those.
You can sign here, right?
Most of them are just share. I think you all have different ones. Take one and pass it down. Find my list here. There we are. We handled all of it tonight. The personnel policy, the review. I also got an email about kind of if we can shuffle things from the 12th. Maybe we do the personnel policy on June 2nd, because in June you're gonna meet on 3 times.
Yep.
6/2, 25. As you're aware, the East Road email I sent to Mark Anderson indicating he had 1 more year. I also, for Janice and Bruce, Ilsley's Ice Cream I talked about last week going on May 8th. I had an opportunity of Easter yesterday and said May 8th's a little short notice for me if I have to do something. Could we put it on the 24th for the planning board? I spoke with Craig and he's okay with it, so I revised the agenda. And at that point, there only a determination would need to be made. So that is got moved to the 24th at the planning board. I handed down a thing that says copy. And the part of our local concerns forum is to notify the abutters. Bruce printed one. Did you print it?
Oh, no, I didn't print one of those, but yeah, you can.
No, that's fine, I just,
Should have
I
been
just read
5.
it.
that's fine, I read it.
There's
too.
only 1 of each for everybody. So that was the information that is going out to the abutters.
There's one
Oh,
there.
you got it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he did.
It's not usual for her not to have enough for
No,
everybody.
I make 5.
that one goes
So
back.
that's gonna be, and then I'm also going to receive, which I think came through tonight, I got a buzz, was the PDF that he's gonna go over at the forum, which I'll share with you guys too. He's gonna send it over.
So Jacobs is running this?
Yep.
Totally, we're not,
Totally.
we're just there as residents
Yeah,
if we show
and
up.
the one thing I'm going to, I think I said before, just out of safety, I'm gonna post that the possibility of a quorum being there, but we won't conduct business, it's just gonna be in attendance, because Jacobs is gonna run the forum.
Okay.
It's not gonna be you guys to answer questions, it's gonna be up to Jacobs.
And this is going to abutters or to everyone?
No, it just only had to go to the immediate abutters.
Okay, and are you gonna post it, also like as a,
I can.
like we do a normal meeting,
Okay.
so that
Oh, I can do it as
It's
like
on
the agenda.
you
All right.
broadcast, I don't know what you call that, the e-subscribe?
E-subscribe. Newsletter. With meeting. So then on the 12th, Park and Rec, we're gonna have remaining employee interviews. And I believe, James, do we have someone for Park and Rec that got moved forward to us?
Yes,
Is May 12th gonna work?
I'd actually like to talk about that tonight, if I can,
Okay, all right.
as part of my committee.
Yeah, I only did the park employees on the one that I just talked about. The food pantry has been shared. I've heard back from 2 out of them. I haven't heard back from everybody, but I anticipate to do that. I've heard what we got is fine. I'm just gonna
Oh, that's
share
good.
that. Yep,
But you'll let us know when everybody's.
I will. And then, Park and Rec bylaws, I was hoping to put that on the 12th, but, are you ready?
It's a quick one, shouldn't it be?
It should be quick, we can do that.
Because we've reviewed it in detail
Yeah.
once, it's just.
And then Jason
Final.
had wanted to, before we lost sight of things, the policies that we had originally went over, the snow and ice removal and solid waste, because the other ones you added to the personnel, there was the standby.
Yeah, I thought we discussed doing all the policies in one public hearing, but I'm not opposed to breaking them up. But
Well, no, I just listed them there. I was gonna do them all in one night.
we're not gonna have the personnel file
sorry.
by then.
All right.
There's just no way. I don't,
Yep,
I would love to tell you that we could do that,
No.
but
okay,
we
and
haven't
then.
not talked about them tonight.
Yeah, I gotcha. I attended the Ethics Committee meeting on 4/17 with the 2 questions about the possession of the related documents and the, is there a member available between meetings? And the answer to that was that the chair does not have anything in his possession, everything came by town email. I sent that over, you'll see you were copied on it.
Okay.
And then the
To
other.
To Whitley,
Yep.
Attorney
And to
Whitley.
the other question, was that Carl, he stops by every Monday and checks the mailbox for physical mail. So if he's gonna be out of town, he would ask Kim to do that. What I did offer, if you watched the meeting, was if something came in on Tuesday's mail after he's been there on Monday, we could email him and let him know something came in so that we still stay current. But he does come by every Monday and check the mailbox. So those 2 questions went back. I'm not sure if that will generate a few more, but those are the 2 questions that I asked on April 17th at the meeting.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. The person that was going to do the streaming didn't show to the meeting. So I did their streaming, it's not a big deal. Handyman, we're handling things as they come about, but, 2 hours a month is very tough to find somebody.
Yeah, so what we might want to do is to consider a consolidation, and then just get somebody in for, these specific things need to be done.
Well, so I can explain to you a little issue that we had today that I went over to the town hall for, is the cleaning young man went over to clean, and the men's bathroom, I'm not sharing the picture because it's disgusting. The men's bathroom evidently has been plugged with something. The only thing we can figure, and I did talk to Pam, that they had 100 dogs come through, so if somebody decided to clean up after their dog and throw the toilet paper or the paper towel and the dog mess into the men's room and shut the door, she didn't check it, but it's 1 flush away from overflowing, and it is awful. So I asked to have Mr. Reuter come because there's something stuck. So he's gonna meet me Wednesday, but I couldn't, we're renting it on Friday, Saturday, so I can't just leave the men's door shut, that's not appropriate. But, I don't, we tried to pinpoint, because the only ones that were in there were, I know there was a great deal of traffic with the, play, and it went from the play to the rabies, and that's all that's been in there so far. And when he called me, he asked if I had a plumber on standby, and I said, no, why? So just to let you know, that's kind of where we are, and, my thought was I was gonna reach out to either if Jason or somebody could just stop by and just check, because we don't even know that the heat gets turned down, you know what I'm saying? Because the kid that cleans it stops 2 times a week, but if it's on the off days, I went over and changed letters and went in today, and that's, what a mess.
Thank you for not sharing the pictures.
I didn't. So, I mean, I'm working on that, and I might just reach out and see if Jason could, on the way by sometime, if they could just, because they go by, somebody does, one way or another. I haven't asked him yet, so, it would just be nice to have somebody check on the place, because, not pretty.
Yeah, but as far as the handyman goes, I mean, it might be just, these are the projects we need done, and just bid it out to somebody.
Okay, yeah, we can, I got a few more thoughts on that, too.
Okay.
I think we talked originally, maybe the building inspector, getting him up to speed.
I always thought that was a good idea.
Yeah,
I
getting him
think
up
the
to
person we
speed, and
got
if there's
now is a
some
good chance to-
downtime, there could be some little things.
A couple of past building inspectors used to kind of do things like that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, I mean, the young man's doing very well, but at the same time, might be an option.
Just
Yeah,
an emergency
definitely.
simple fix. I always wanted that.
And he's another one that goes out every day, I can have him stay at the town hall while he's out. So there's a few things, we could look at. I just left the cable on because, like I said, they're gonna meet in April to go over their changes, so they should see us in May or June. I got Mike asked about the RFP to Sherry, and there was an email that went out on 4/18. Mike had asked Sherry to reach out to me, and I haven't heard anything yet. I also have emailed for quotes for any immediate leaks or immediate needs for the horse sheds.
Yeah, she did call me, and that horse shed is that open building back there,
Yes.
which I wasn't equating those two things,
Yes,
so.
yeah, it's open.
If the building's leaking, if the roof is leaking, it's open on one side anyway, so.
There's more rotting the
Right,
structure.
right, I was just saying,
But there's one end,
there's things inside, and then there's the outside
Yeah,
of the building
yeah, there is,
itself.
I think, I don't know what's in, if there's something.
She said
in
the only
every
thing
bay.
she could recall actually being in there, and she didn't go look, and I didn't either, was the town hall replica.
Yeah,
is
that
in
I
there.
know is sitting in
And the
one of them.
doors, I think, are in there. Are the doors still in there?
I don't know, I know the replica.
does that one end have an enclosed shed?
I don't know.
I went to the rabies thing, and I walked around, because we'd just been talking about it leaking, and, there's the one end, it does seem to have some giant doors that are like put up on top.
Right.
And it's locked, so there's an enclosed bit that's locked, and then that's all the way on the left.
Yeah.
And then bays, and like they have, like old, almost advertisement, like flyers that are kind of peeling off. And then all the way to the right, there was another door that was locked. So like 2 enclosed spots.
Yeah, cause I thought the same thing. I mean, it's just open horse shed, but I did remember on the end towards the Legion there was a lock, and I didn't know what was in there, but, yeah, I didn't know if that was a concern.
Hey, those doors are up overhead of the doors,
Yeah,
the
they're
actual
on top on
openings.
the left, yeah.
Were they the original doors?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And it
That would
had
be a
like some
shame.
nice looking glass on them,
Yeah,
but some of
that would
it's
be a shame to get
smashed up.
wet, but,
Yeah.
Well, they're semi-exposed anyway, just
They are.
being there.
they are, but if they're up above on the rafter and
They're
the
laying
water's
flat.
dripping on
Right.
them, you don't wanna do that.
Right. Yeah.
So was she gonna look at things, or?
No,
Okay.
she wanted, wanted to know if we had any money, and I said, it's,
Because I wrote
Yeah.
the email and said that we had 45,000.
right, I told her there was
That was
some
for the
around
entire
40 is
building.
what I
Yeah.
recalled, I didn't have my notes in front of me. And
So I just said if there's an immediate, if there's something that needs, could we try to get 3 quotes and put it on, so.
Yeah, but the way I left it with her was, this would definitely supersede what you just said. Your statements would supersede what I told her. Was that, right now, there's, we don't know how we're gonna spend that money, and I'm
That's
not,
what I said
we
too.
can't really commit
So
to.
it covers the entire
Right.
town
To
buildings.
it being it, we need to develop a comprehensive list, and it's gonna be more than 45, so where do we start?
If it's kind of jerry-rigged, and I'm sure, if there's one spot like that, those two ends are locked or something in them that can't get leaked on, let's say, because the open bay's nothing in them, then it stinks, we can't fix them, but
Right.
it might be all gone, maybe he has a plan for it, but the roofing off the old highway garage was stacked down in the highway department. I was always gonna use it to build structures over things at the transfer station, I never did. The wind might have blown it all over, it might be gone by now, but if one end has something that is salvageable that they need to save, they could hire a contractor, take 2 or 3 pieces of metal roofing that we have and cover it until.
There's a temporary cover.
Yeah, we're not gonna come up with 30 grand this year to fix that place, so, or 15.
No,
so.
and the same thing too is the highway guys, there's some carpenter level down there as well that they took off the,
We had a $30,000
overhangs
roof
itself.
put on the old highway garage in 3 years. We tore it down, and I saved the roof off it, because that's one thing that,
Corrugated metal.
yeah, it was brand new corrugated metal, so I saved it because that, A, was one thing everybody complained about, and B, I had ambitions of putting roofs over the demo trailer, so, but anyway, if it took 4 or 5 pieces, maybe the wind's blowing away, you'd have to ask Jay, I don't know.
So since you kinda know what you're talking about, would you go take a look and see if you think the roof needs that level of,
I don't know much about what they wanna save over there, that's a problem. I could go talk to Jay and see if the roofing's down there, but
well, that might be a first step.
to
yeah.
start,
Yeah.
it's a start.
I know they wanted the whole thing done, because it's historically, they don't want it to fall down, but I don't know if there's one particular spot where there's things stored they don't wanna get ruined, because
Probably those,
we could save that for now, the rest of it, we can't do nothing
those
about.
old big doors, original doors in front of it, are up in the rafters
Yeah,
and laying flat. So if any roof's dripping, it's dripping on those rotten wood.
yeah, yeah.
Do you wanna go take a look?
Yeah, well, you and I get together over the
Okay.
weekend or something.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then I only changed, Bruce, the only thing I didn't know of is, I didn't watch your energy commission. Are you anywhere close on bylaws?
Yeah, I think we got one more change. It'll be done next meeting. We'll be done.
But again, we'll review it and then do them all.
Yeah.
Okay. Monthly report, we went to, building permit. I added the HMP with the EOP. And that was all I changed below what I talked about earlier. I shared with you, I'd like to talk about under correspondence maybe, the lawn care.
Go ahead now.
So, as you all know, Denise went back and forth with the lawn care company as far as ball fields because WAC and the baseball season starts May 2nd or something like that. So this lady wrote back, as you can see, it said dragging the fields, and then Denise forwarded it to me, which I forwarded to all of you, because she made a statement in here about the cemeteries. That she had a chance to walk the grounds, or Dawn did, the husband, for cemeteries, and doing so, the ones that only need cleanups, however, 3 times a season is concerning. They're in the woods, so secluded, we can't get our equipment there. It's a huge liability for my guys. One of them's over a quarter of a mile in, the other ones are worse. We can't be doing these, which is why I'm assuming they haven't been touched in years and not a place to take our equipment, and some we actually can't. We need to figure out what the town wants to do on this, because that's not an option. We also don't have the time to literally be walking around in the woods for hours. We have properties to mow. We can do all the main cemeteries, but we need to forgo the remote ones. Please let me know what our options are, and I'll get the rest on the schedule. So I wrote back to her and said that the bid for the cemeteries was awarded based on your bid for the scope of work stated. Contract you signed had the same scope of work to be performed, which again included all the cemeteries on them. So I don't believe there's a choice in doing some and not at all. The board will have to discuss tonight. When the bid came in, we assumed that you had looked at all the cemeteries to know exactly what was going to be involved in order to put a number on the bid. We had 2 other bidders that bid on the same scope of work you did, which again included all. You submitted invoices to be paid, which is, I'm bringing this up because you have it in your payables for check for all of that. You submitted invoices for your bids, again, based on doing all the work. So I'll have to let you know the response from the board after tonight's meeting. That went out late. But I wanted to put them on notice, but I
We
do.
do have a
You have a
response already,
response, yes,
yeah.
because I saw it on my wrist. So, do you want me to continue with the response? Let me find it.
It's pretty long.
So she wrote to Denise, even though it said Naomi, but it says, "We based our bidding, since they do not have a mandatory walkthrough, on past bidding and historical numbers and visual assessment of what you can see. When awarded, we had to wait until beginning of April to get a call to walk the cemeteries needing spring and fall cleanup as one in the middle of the summer. These are in the woods and so remote that our equipment cannot get in, and to be honest, we took images and video that have not been touched in years, so the bid may say it on the scope, but they 100% have not been done in years. Even bidding on properties based on previous numbers, it would be assumed that they were maintained the year prior. Otherwise, the next landscape company had a lot more to clean up and then an average spring cleanup. We do a lot of cemetery, and some are in unique places. However, all of them are accessible from a road, allowing a truck and a trailer with equipment to easily maneuver around. These literally have us walking into the woods. The other bidders, I understand, bid on the same scope of work, but they also never were brought into the woods to identify those miscellaneous plots. The bid was around 45, just with the 18 regular cemeteries, not the remote, needing 2 fall cleanups and mowing comes to $2,500 per cemetery per season. Based on 7 months, that's $360 per location, equals $89 a week. So our pricing was definitely a bargain to begin with, but no, we did not know that our equipment would not be able to be used on those remote locations. I can send some images and video to show how all these years that they have not received service, if the board would like to see the current conditions. If I'd known the email before tonight, I would have sent the email and the pictures to be prepared. Now I feel the meeting's probably already started. Hopefully this information can be forwarded to them. We would like to work with you to handle the concerns, but our equipment is too big and we can't be lugging equipment in. Please let me know how you'd like to proceed. Thank you." So, there's a whole list that's not gonna see any service from what I gather. There's a lot that you do have to go into.
It doesn't seem like they've seen service either.
I would say I do know of 4 that the gentleman before that could not find. A couple of them were on private property.
I think the ones that we knew were on private property got removed from the list, though, didn't they?
Yeah.
They're now on this year's,
Right.
so. we
But
knew
some of those remote ones was just making sure debris and stuff was cleaned out. They weren't even a lot of mowing because it was moss and stuff, but,
There's nothing to mow.
right.
Yeah.
So, I guess something that caught my ear that irks me about that, only because recent bid of another nature, it's up to them to go look at them before the bid or reach out for questions.
Well, that's what I.
Not up to us.
I guess that's what I thought when you're asking for all this work.
I put out a bid for work and they came back different. And one contractor had went and looked and called me with questions and the other one assumed, and he got beat by his assumption. If he'd have called and asked a question before the bid opening, they'd have found out that it would have been different, so. If they should
So I don't know
have
how you
looked.
wanna
That's
handle
not a
it, but
good
you do have a
excuse for
check
me.
in there. You have a check on your manifest for $13,500 for the first payment of the municipal and the cemetery.
I never saw an actual list of the ones they were trying to avoid.
I don't think
Versus
they
sound
listed
like
them,
two.
yeah, I don't know that there's a list, because I didn't see a list on that either. Was there an attachment, though?
I didn't notice one.
No, because she didn't, because she said had she known, she would have attached. I don't see an attachment. Yeah, because there was 18 of them that will receive spring and fall cleanup, regular mowing, as well as brush and hedge maintenance for the season. And then there was another section, they will receive spring, midsummer, and fall. And those are, not all are remote, though. You can get to the one next to my house, you can get to the one for some of them, they have street addresses.
Yeah, I think we need to ask them specifically, which ones are you saying you're not able to do? I think that's the first step. And then the cemetery advisory committee meets again before we do, maybe they can review it.
They're meeting this week,
Yeah,
yeah, so if I can get them back and get them to them.
yeah.
Because I know they're meeting here, because I gave them all, I sent an email so that they can all be sworn in.
So maybe they can look at it and say, yeah, there's no way that you could do these anyway, so,
All right, so
I don't
first
know.
I'll ask her which ones, and then I'll give them to them for Wednesday night.
Maybe just for an input.
I won't be able to be here
Yeah.
by 5, so is the door be open so you can get in?
Wednesday night, they're open till
Oh,
7.
that's right, I'll be alone, I just.
And it's a work session anyway, they're working with the deeds, right?
That's usually what they've been doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I was not really worried about it, but I physically can't get here by 5
Is
already.
everybody okay with this, just asking them to make a recommendation? It wouldn't be actionable, but recommendation.
Yeah, it's hard to even
Like you
say
you get a list
if
of
it's
ones
one,
that
if it's
refuse to do it
5.
first.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like, but, I mean, it's a fine place to start, that's why we moved advisors.
All right, so I'll work with Mike on that part, I'll get which ones, I'll see if they can have some input. What do you want to do with payment, though?
Well, any payment that we make, we can decrement for the future, so if we come to an agreement
Okay.
that
Gotcha.
it's gonna
Okay.
be X less, then
Yeah.
we've overpaid them by,
Yeah,
Why
it's not
and-
final payment, it's initial
Right.
payment, right?
No, it's right, it's divided up monthly, and what they did is took 2 contracts, divided it by the 7, and then,
On the other side of that, though, it did sound like, did Denise ever get a final answer? Did they get the fields ready? Are they going to get the fields ready?
I don't,
Because it seemed to kind of divert over.
yeah,
the
it
cemetery
went over to
discussion.
the cemetery,
Because understandably, that was Denise's,
yeah, Denise started there, and then she tagged on with the cemetery after. I don't know, I can certainly ask Salem, I don't know, because it got tagged over to me for cemetery part. No, it starts this weekend, next weekend. Next weekend, I
because
think.
that may be, so there's a cemetery thing, so I
Right.
guess it's, yeah, ask them about cemeteries, but do not stop work on ball fields. And, the
Yeah.
check has been signed. We expect this work to continue as we sort out the cemetery problem.
All right, so I'll get to her. I'll get to the advisory. That's all I had as far as,
I have a question for you, Naomi, if I can add one more.
which one?
I'm gonna pass this down so you can see it. I'm gonna send it that way, just so you know what I'm talking about here. This is a property that we have talked about in the past, where we've had specific requirements put on them on Clough Park Road. So I don't remember well enough, do you happen to remember, have they done everything this board has asked of them in the last couple of years? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Okay.
And I would ask that, I would like to look.
Yeah.
I would.
Okay.
Can I see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Okay.
There was some issue, you're right.
So just, yeah, before it gets a third signature, I would just ask that question and maybe ask,
Yeah.
if anybody wants to put a third, that's your prerogative, but we may want to hold off.
Yeah, there
no, I
was,
wouldn't have signed it if I'd known there was an issue.
no, there was some discussion a while ago, and then we had them brought back in, and I just want to look through
Yeah,
the
I don't
file
remember
now.
well enough.
Yeah.
Sure.
So do you mind if I hang on?
Please.
No, don't mind at all.
Then it won't get a third one, how's that?
The rest of them have 3, though.
Okay.
Anything else for the administrator's report?
Manifest, but that's not.
I would motion to order the treasurer to sign the payroll and accounts payable checks dated April 24th, 2025, as included in the following manifests. Payroll manifest, $108,192.73. Accounts payable manifest, $191,795.82. Where school accounts payable manifest, $500,000. John Stark accounts payable manifest, $250,000, for a total of $1,049,988.55. There are no selectmen meetings for April 28th and May 5th, so I would further order to have the treasurer sign payroll checks dated May 1 and May 8th, 2025, estimated to be approximately $190,000. Furthermore, to order the treasurer to sign up to the amount of $210,000 for accounts payables that cannot wait until our next scheduled meeting, which is on May 12th, 2025. Reports and actual check amounts will be reported to the Board of Selectmen by inclusion in the manifest memo at the next scheduled meeting. Would anyone like to second that?
Now, this includes the loan we were just talking about?
It does, and as you're walking out, it's not a final payment, it's an incremental payment, and we can decrement against that in the future
We can change
if we
next
need to
month.
change the amount in the future.
I do believe it's sign it, so I guess I can't vote no anyway, but okay, yeah, as long,
So you would second it?
yeah, sure.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, say yes or yay?
Yes.
Yes? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Motion passes 500. That brings us to minutes. I personally have not had a chance to review either set of minutes, so I don't know if everyone else has.
Can I talk about something at minutes? Could I? So, oh, did you say yes? I was looking down.
I didn't say anything.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, I received an email from James, asking to, on Wednesday, says the BOS has reviewed and edited the attached minutes of December 23rd, 2024. Would you please remove previous minutes for that day and post this document as a final version? Please feel free to change the name and the file format to PDF as appropriate. So it came in a Word document, but it's not the final document that you previously approved, so I'm totally baffled. So, just so in December, we had an original set,
Yes.
December 23rd, of which we marked up on January 6th. January 6th, we went into, because there was a seal that needed to be added, and there was a couple of second non-publics. So then, we got to the next week and realized that there wasn't a motion to seal. So we sealed it, second round, on December 23rd. We sealed it and added on January 13th, a motion to made, so we added that paragraph. We also made a motion to rescind the previous approval on January 6th.
Yes.
Then we fast forward to February 10th, because you had rescinded, they're still set in draft. And we revised them again to make some corrections, but what was sent didn't reflect February 10th's changes.
So where did you get that
So
file
I'm
from?
trying to
Them off
figure,
the
you
website.
totally, I drive myself enough crazy, but I'm trying to figure out what I was supposed to do,
So,
because I have a final set.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he said he got what he took off the website. So it was within the last 2 weeks that he downloaded it off the website. So what was on the website, I'm inferring, was not the latest document.
that's what I would.
Is that what I'm
That's-
hearing?
That's exactly, but I
Okay.
didn't know where it came from, and it was in Word and said to make it to final. And I backtracked because
Okay.
there's one specific paragraph that has got to do with my husband,
So.
I didn't know if I was supposed to leave it in or take it out, because it was very, very evident Mr. Pratt wanted that taken back to the original.
So I will.
Which what
so-
does
let-
not-
No,
let-
before
Let's
we
cut
go-
to the chase here. So we don't need to discuss all of that.
No.
Because, there's certain things we shouldn't be saying about that.
Right, I'm
so-
just asking, I was totally baffled
All right,
as
We,
to
we
what I
want,
was asked.
we want the final,
If-
final version.
So
Okay,
if you would send that to me, please.
which is this?
Yeah,
If
send
you
that
would-
to James.
If you would send me what you consider the final, the last version.
And
So
not
if you-
put it up?
If you discard what I sent you,
Okay, but don't put this up yet? I haven't done that yet.
no, but just send me.
What is this? I'm not,
So, I'm sorry. So, as a result of February 10th came this set of minutes.
All right, if you
That
would
have not been put up yet.
do not, but send that minutes
Even
to
though
him,
you've finalized them, why
Yes.
wou't I put them up?
because we have since changed them, and I'm gonna tell you why, as soon as you're done talking.
No wonder I should drink more. I just
So,
didn't understand the
You
whole.
You wouldn't,
Okay, well, all right.
I'm
so-
gonna hopefully explain it all to
So
you.
12/23, don't post the final, just send them to James.
Right, and James is gonna make a change
Okay.
and send it back to you. So what you got off the website wasn't the final then?
Correct.
We're
That's what-
understanding right now.
that's what it
Okay,
appears to me.
all right.
And if you can send it to me in a Word document, that'd be awesome. I can
Yeah,
use the
I can do
PDF,
that.
but.
I was curious why you sent it in Word, and I'm thinking, well, everybody has that program to go from PDF to Word anyway. But then when I looked at it, and I'm like, no, you didn't capture the changes that we talked about
Yeah,
February
so
10th.
I had assumed what was up on the web was our
Yeah.
latest and greatest.
No, okay.
So
Okay.
we know what happens when
All
you
right.
assume.
Any other questions on that?
No,
Otherwise, I have a
just-
statement to
it-
read about
It
that.
just totally blew my mind as to what the heck we were doing.
I would like to read a statement. At the March 31st, 2025 meeting, the board conducted a non-public session and voted to revise the meeting minutes of 12/23/2024 and also to remove the video footage of the same meeting. Both are to address a concern raised by Mr. Bolton over comments made at the meeting by a member of the public. Those comments made by a member of the public referenced a prior incident involving Mr. Bolton. Following that December 23rd meeting on January 13th, 2025, the board was made aware by Mr. Bolton that he had obtained an annulment relating to that incident. To correct the public record, the board has now revised the December 23rd meeting minutes and taken down the video of that meeting. The board did not announce this decision before tonight to allow for sufficient time to complete these actions, which turns out we didn't actually get finished, but we now have a solid plan. So separately and not relating to the preceding comment, contrary to what is being alleged by certain members of the public, neither the Board of Selectmen nor the Ethics Committee are destroying public meeting minutes. At a prior Ethics Committee meeting, a complaint against a town employee was discussed in public session, and the draft meeting minutes reflected that discussion, including identifying the employee in question. To rectify this error, the Ethics Committee voted to seal that portion of the draft minutes and to revise those minutes to remove the identification of the town employee. To carry out those actions intended to protect the town employee, it was necessary to take down the unsealed draft minutes until they can be revised and reposted. Thank you. So I can send that to you if you'd like the text of it, but I don't know that it will go in there verbatim, so I don't know if you need that or not. So I had started out saying I haven't reviewed the minutes for the 7th and 14th, but
Just one quick change. When you're looking at line 193, this,
What am I looking at?
on the,
date?
yeah, on the 7th minutes,
193,
minutes,
okay,
to say begin with Friday or something.
Friday roll.
Yeah, it seems that the wording was a little peculiar there. If you read the whole sentence.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so you can
I'd have to look at what it says.
look that up, and we'll defer all the approvals till next meeting for the 7th and the 14th, if everybody's okay with that.
I have.
Keep it.
Okay. See if any of them are important.
Anything requiring, any investigation?
You asking me?
No.
Him.
No, I had some changes and I didn't know if any of them were important enough that they shouldn't delay, but none of them are important enough. So I'll
Or
just
require
save them for the next
investigation?
set of- Nope, I'll save
Okay.
them for the next time.
All right, that brings us to Selectmen Committee updates.
I can give an update on the voting machine review. So this was, I guess we've talked about it on and off for the last month or so. So James and I met with the town clerk and the town moderator. And we, well, I took some notes, I'll just stick with them. The state had approved two options for voting machines, LHS ImageCast and Voting Works. LHS is who we've used forever. Voting Works is new. I'm not sure that last I saw, they didn't yet have federal approval, but they did have New Hampshire approval. They follow like an open source model, but LHS is who we've used before. We were able to review documentation from both companies, and the current town clerk had previously observed a webinar from the town of Milford about the LHS machine. And both she and the previous town clerk prefer to move forward with that, the LHS. It is our current vendor. It's of the two options that the state allows us to go with. The LHS is more like the machine that we already have. And the one, I mean, cutting to the chase, like, the four of us agreed, yeah, this seems to make sense. And the reasons why, it has the ability to separate out write-ins, whereas the Voting Works does not. And if you can imagine at the end of the night when polling closes, we would, if we chose the other machine, the very first step we'd have to do is separate everything out by hand. Right, like, no. So then there is also
Sounds like a nightmare.
yeah. So then there's also that third slot for hand counts that people can choose. So 2 slots in the box, totally clean, machine read everything, write-ins, and then a third for hand counts. It has a slightly slower
Read.
read
rate.
speed. What it's doing, that the old machine did not do, is it's actually taking a scan of each ballot as it goes in, and saving all those. So we have the paper ballots. It's not a like touch screen that kind of machine. It is tabulating paper ballots. And as part of that, it's scanning them. It has the ability to scan write-ins.
It appeared to have an OCR,
Yeah.
optical character recognition, so that if somebody's handwriting is mostly legible, it'll tell you that Salem Bloom was the write-in for this position.
Wow.
Anybody but yeah. So that should save some time as well at the end of the night operations, where right now we sit down and we have to read through and tally, or the first thing we have to do is like track what all the write-ins actually were. We should be able to save some amount of time on that.
So will you know that it's been read versus not read in the?
I don't know the answer to that.
'Cause that might be,
No, that's a good point,
It's a
though. How would you
detail.
know? Yeah. And so because it's doing a scan, it said it could do 15 ballots per minute, so it takes 4 seconds to feed the ballot in, which standing it sounds slow, except, when you stand there all day, like we were talking about, I guess all 4 of us in the room at the time, most of the time the ballots seem to get kicked back out 2 or 3 or 4 times. And we're standing there feeding them. So if it can take it once in 4 seconds, that should be faster overall. And we don't have a speed comparison of the Voting Works machine. Other summaries, yeah, and like I said a minute ago, it's just tabulating results. It's not it's not like a touchscreen, that kind of voting machine. And then the quote we had from LHS expired April 10th, but on the 18th, she confirmed with them that they would honor it for an additional 30 days. And so to summarize, that group, again, James and I and the town clerk and the town moderator, suggested that the board, authorize the town clerk to proceed with the LHS machine and to authorize her to spend up to the $7,000 previously encumbered twice for the purchase of 2 voting machines. and I guess what I haven't mentioned here is, through 2026, I think it's June 2026, the state is giving $3,500 to towns to purchase those. So we're previously, the town, we have, like, everybody, when they go vote, you're used to two machines. One of those is technically owned by the town, one is technically owned by the school system. Because of this kind of, I don't think it's technically a grant, but I'll call it a grant. The way the state is giving this grant, it did not apply to school systems, so it didn't make sense for the school to purchase one of these two machines.
Yeah.
It made sense to move forward with the encumbered 7,000. So it's 7,000 per machine. Sorry, I thought I'd be home by now. Just stop my alarm. I gotta go back to work. Each machine is $7,000. The state is kicking in 35 towards each, which gets us down to 35 for each, which is a grand total of 7,000 for two machines. So,
Yeah, and it is definitely not a grant, so there's nothing for us to accept.
sorry, I'm trying
It's
to
a-
poor language, but,
Yeah, it is definitely not a grant, it's just, they're paying for half of it.
okay.
And the quote that we received reflected that it was,
Yeah.
that they were, that
Getting
LHS would take care of that.
Yeah, right, that's another good distinction, is we don't even need to get involved in that 35 coming into the town and going back out. They are dealing with the state to get that money. So, unless, give that a beat before I make a motion. But I'd move that we authorize the town clerk to proceed with purchasing 2 voting machines from LHS, total purchase price not to exceed $7,000. Oh, you know what, shoot. Do you have the, you're probably looking at the same thing I'm thinking about.
Since you know what you're looking for, you look.
I am looking to make sure, do we need to hold a public hearing before we do this?
That was part of my question. The other part had to do with, right now, the school owns one of them. We're gonna own both of them, but can the school pay for maintenance, upkeep of it? I would think that we could ask them.
Yeah, of course.
That was, did we get that answer?
The maintenance of it?
Right, what is our current maintenance cost?
I'm pretty sure it's 0. Because these are so old, we haven't really been doing anything to them. There's not really anything to do, as far as I know.
You're concerned for public hearings because the state's gonna chip in some?
Right, I just wanna make sure, cause I know, I'm skimming through here, I know that there's a sheet in here with the,
What to do?
quoting an RSA.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's listed in there. I did see the page before I handed the folder over. It's a state credit. It's not a grant. They're just crediting the 3,500.
and everything we're kind of rifling through here, this was information that the former town clerk gave to the chair as she retired. And then the chair, once we figured out that we were doing this, she just handed it straight to us. Yeah, okay, here we go. Okay, this is RSA 65640. I'm not gonna read the whole thing. Selectmen of any town. Yeah, if anybody else wants to read it, it's right here, but I don't see, we make the decision and we notify the Secretary of State. Is
Okay.
my reading of that. Yep.
Could you say your motion again, whether
Oh, man.
doing that?
I was happy with it too. I don't have it written down, so
Oh, I thought
I
maybe you did.
I move that we authorize the town clerk to proceed with purchasing 2 voting machines from LHS. A total purchase price not to exceed $7,000.
Okay. From the encumbered funds.
Correct, previously, yeah. And if that, my intention there, if it's not clear enough, is like she should be able to sign for whatever, it's, she's taking ownership of that and the ability to authorize paying, spending that money.
Okay. Anyone like to second that?
Sure. James can.
I heard Benji first, so I'll go with you,
Worked so
Selectman.
hard for, Benji.
Yep. All right. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say yes or yay? Yes. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? I believe I heard 5 yeses. Passes 5-0-0. Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for doing that. And thank you for the town clerk and moderator for meeting as well.
That was everything I had
Okay,
for the meeting.
good, because I took up 2/3 of my paper. Should wrote smaller. We're still on Selectmen Committee updates?
Yep. Park met, and in part of the meeting, we have received one applicant for the park director. This is our current Chase Park supervisor, Kristen Lundeen. She's doing 90% of the work anyway, and as we have not received anybody else, but we could definitely use the assistance in stepping up and doing the additional tasks for the director. The park has pretty well unanimously suggested that she take on that position.
Was she retain the supervisor? Would she do both?
She will do both.
Did they see any conflicts with that? I'm not saying there are, did they see any?
Well, other than she technically would be supervising herself if there was any kind of if something were to happen. Not really. The only other issue is that there are a lot of Lundeens in park, but we've had a lot of family involvement over the past anyway, and so nobody really saw that as an impediment either.
So is the ask that we move forward with that this evening?
It is.
I mean, for the year I sat on park and, being down there, like her whole family, but she in particular have been a boon to park, and I would be comfortable with moving forward right now.
Thoughts?
Sure. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Do you have a motion?
I will make the motion that we, I guess it's appoint Kristen Lundeen, our current Chase Park supervisor, to take on the position in addition as the park director for the stipend of $5,000 annually.
I'll second that.
Now, does that overtake the supervisor pay, or does she get somehow both?
It would be doing it concurrently.
In addition
So,
to.
Any further discussion? Do you see any kind of procedural reasons why we can't move forward?
I don't.
Okay.
They're in need of it, and it's gonna be really
No, I
needed
just meant as
soon.
far
Yeah,
as there's
yeah.
something we hadn't considered that,
No, we've had it advertised for a long time, you didn't even get a bite.
yeah, okay. All right, any other discussion?
just that in the future, we may want to try to turn that back into an hourly position. It was in the past, and
Yeah, I think there's goods and bads to that, because once you reach $5,000, they don't do anything, right? If you have an hourly, meaning, once you reached your cap, So-
I would turn, it would not be a cap of $5,000
Okay,
hourly,
okay.
that it would be whatever a standard rate
Right.
is per hour.
because in the summer, there's a lot to do. In the winter, I know you're getting more things to do, but there wasn't as much.
Yep,
I just don't want to see someone use it all summer and then say, done.
So the intention is for her to keep the
It's a
supervisor role, not
stipend.
put it back out?
Yeah.
yes, she would continue to be the Chase Park supervisor. She
I'm in
would-
favor of it, I guess what I'm getting at is, there was a request to increase that salary, and we didn't go for it. And I think she does a great job, she's a very sweet person, I'm all in favor for it, but this does seem like a way to combine jobs to get the salary up where it's fair, so maybe next
Well-
budget season we consider that. And I don't fault you for it,
Yep.
not that I would be below doing the same
Oh,
thing. but-
so So we did have this discussion, and that the Chase Park supervisor hourly position would continue to stay in Chase Park. Anything she does out as the director would not be done on an hourly basis.
Right.
So.
Right, she can't do both.
Right.
For one
Simultaneously.
salary, yes.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, for the two salary, yeah.
Anyway,
Right.
I'll second that, I'm in favor of it.
Yeah,
also-
it was moved by James and seconded by Bruce, I believe.
Oh, all in favor, aye.
Yeah, we were in discussion. All in favor? Yes.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, motion passes 500. Thank you, Mrs. Lundin.
Yes.
And again, thank you to Denise for being on part for 4 years and the service that she put in for that.
Wow.
Yes, thank you.
And is she officially gone now?
She is.
Okay. Well, that's
We
too
had, we were missing one of our members, and it was determined to not hold elections this past week. We will wait until next month.
Okay. All right. Anything else for Selectmen Committee updates? Yeah, correspondence, other business. We did have one correspondence related to a road. Jewett Road?
Jewett, yep.
Jewett? Is that a class 6?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And it was Easter yesterday. Well, there's Easter mud runs most everywhere. It used to be years ago.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
okay. I
unbelievable.
was like,
I actually saw the
does it
least
have to
amount
do
of
with
Jeeps
Jewett Road?
yesterday
I'm
that
like,
I've ever
there's
seen.
probably a
but
story
it's-
here, I don't
There's a
know.
Mother's Day and an Easter.
Okay.
So I think, Fair and Pond does get used a lot in that case.
My opinion of the email is that
That is a class 6 town road. The police chief ought to,
I would have liked to, I guess I forgot about it. I would like to talk with him about it, because I don't know the law, but it is a town road. And anything that's unregistered on a town road
right, still needs to be registered, even
is-
class 6, right.
is,
I did forward this to him, though.
By
This was
him being
forwarded
the
to him.
police?
The police chief, yes.
and I've never heard out of his mouth about this particular subject that he couldn't refuse to do it. So all I'm getting is what this individual wrote to us. So I guess I wouldn't mind hearing from the chief on to me, if it's a town road and it's unregistered, then,
Right.
I know that I have been out that road here or there, and I don't see that traffic, but I don't live on the road, so. And I know that the shooting up there, that old log landing, happens a lot, but I don't know the laws on that either. I mean, it's be no different really, other than it's obnoxious and over the top, is no different than hunting out there in a stray bullet going ways. That's one shot versus 4,000, but it's still, I don't know. I would think the chief would have more.
Yeah, I was gonna recommend that if you hadn't already talked to the police chief, you do that, but, I would say that let T.A. Bolton formulate a response. Is everybody okay
There's
with
been
that?
a lot of complaints about that, on that neighborhood over the last couple of years about unregistered vehicles, such as side-by-sides and four-wheelers and
On the road.
on the road, and I would think that'd be enforceable, but I guess it would be.
Okay.
Me too.
Yeah, I still see side-by-sides with plates on them. I thought that went away.
Yeah, and did we ever vote that in this town? 'Cause
I don't know, but I saw them at the gas station. I thought that was a little unique. And I was like,
I thought towns had to vote that in for one, they had to meet the road regulations, but.
yeah, they had a number plate on the back. They ride up and down 114 with a number plate. I don't know.
Is everybody okay with Tia Bolton responding after she gets with the police chief?
Yeah, it's a tough call. I mean, I got one the other day. The lady that lives on the Bart Clough side of Barnard Hill. And the Barnard Hill, they go all the way through to the campground side, and that's a class 6 not maintained, but they go back and forth and they go tearing by her house.
And the other thing with these class 6 roads, I don't know of one that there isn't a class 5 on each end, such as Barnard Hill. So they had to go across to class 5 to get to that piece of class 6, so even if class 6 isn't enforceable, the end of the class 5.
And it's nothing, I mean, by the time you call somebody, you know, by the time they get down there, they're long
Right.
gone, because they're fast, you know,
The Jewett goes from Mountain Road to Route 149, so
right,
there's,
It goes up to
there's a
Mountain.
class 5 or higher road on each
On
end.
each end of it, absolutely.
right.
Yeah, the only way you could do that is if you lived in that stretch, but
Sure.
otherwise, yeah,
Right.
you're going across it.
And those are horse people, so they're not on side by side.
Well, you never know. Okay. Any other correspondence that anybody
You
else
got
had?
that one?
Anything else from the selectmen before we go to the agenda for 5:12? Okay, we have Chase Park, correct? And is that 6:15?
This should be the three that are left.
Right, and that's 6:15
Oh. you
or
wanted to-
6:30?
I had 6:30.
We talked last time about 6:15, but.
It's 6:30 and then 7 called to
I
order.
thought it was 6:15, that's why I was here 15 minutes early, because I was mistaken, thought it was tonight.
That's two of us, don't feel bad.
Well, I know, I get down there and they're like, you're late, and I'm like, what do you mean I'm late? And then you guys are in here and I'm like, I still got 5 minutes, I don't know, did I miss a memo?
We discussed doing the 3 Chase Park at 6:15 last week.
Yeah, for,
Just forgot
for
what
next,
week that was
next
supposed
time.
to be.
Yeah.
Okay, is 6:15
Well,
the answer?
it's up to you guys.
We did that, we decided that
Up
last
to
time.
Salem.
Okay,
I will probably not be here at 6:15, but that's okay.
all right.
Okay, 6:15 start time, so then you could start at 6:30,
Okay,
because you only got 3, 5 minutes apiece. Some of them not even 5 minutes. Then you get public comment, and then I had questioned myself is, did you ask the chief to come back or in May? We talked
At
about
least
pushing
with
him
the
off,
answers.
but,
yeah, at least with the answers, but, he may have made an emergency purchase by then, we're not sure.
okay, I guess I'll check with him.
Better not have.
And then park and rec bylaws, final review
Well, we should be able to get that on the
for the
12th.
May 12th.
Yeah.
And then I have a consent agenda that I don't know, but I do want to let you know, is May 8th. Your probably consent agenda will be very long because we had our deadline for the April 15th. So she's gonna come in May 8th so that we can get it on the consent agenda. I'm going to ask you on the 12th too that, because we have to still, after this is done, print the warrant to print the tax bills. So if it's not done by the 12th, I may ask you guys to stop by through the week to sign the warrant so we can print bills, because Beth said we need to print bills for cash flow. So, just letting you know that, it doesn't have to be on here, but I think the consent agenda will probably be fairly lengthy.
Not,
There was a lot of applications.
not to interrupt, I guess, but if the police chief comes in, and if there's time enough for him to think about it, want him to mention the correspondence he was
Yeah,
talking about, or is
if
that
they're-
too soon?
if
Just so
can.
we don't lose track of it, it seemed to be kind of.
Yeah, I'm assuming it'll go on the TA's report at a minimum, so, at a minimum.
I would assume he'd have
Yeah.
something to say about it, but. If not, then we don't need to say
So then
anything.
I just had the consent and then the traditional administrators, because we moved some off, manifest minutes, and then, non-public at the end for the review.
Yep, and we had talked, last time about the Board of Selectmen operations policy.
Yeah, Bruce and I haven't finished gathering as
Okay.
far as the email. I've sent out a listserv. and-
Yeah, that would be separate from an email policy. I think you guys were working on a specific individual email policy.
Right.
Yeah, but we also, I had asked on the listserv for like social media and some other things, like how they conduct business.
Oh, okay,
So
I didn't realize
when you
that.
said BOS policy, I jumped to more than just the one.
Okay. All right.
We
Okay,
may have something.
That's
I don't
fine.
know. We'll have to.
all right. Anybody want anything added or taken off?
Did you say? Police chief gave us the Henniker one a couple years ago.
It's
What?
on the Henniker's website.
Chief Moore gave us the Henniker, like, Selectmen operating manual, whatever they call it. It's big. It's,
Yeah.
It's on their website. You can just download it directly from there, from Henniker, whatever their .gov is. Henniker NH or henniker.gov.
Yeah, I get a lot of links to Lebanon and.
Yeah.
They're like, here, go here, go here. I'm like, okay.
Anything else to add or take off? May 12th?
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, just a reminder to the public, we will meet again on May 12th. We will not have a meeting on the next 2 weeks. Meet again on May 12th. I will make a motion to adjourn. Would anyone like to second that?
Yep.
All right. All opposed?
All opposed.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Okay, 5 yeses.